is going on? My head is killing me. God, I feel like throwing up. Keep it together, David. Breathe. Okay, I just need a glass of water and some painkillers. I just need to open my eyes and get out of bed and... What the hell? Jesus Christ! It wasn't a dream. What is this? Where am I? Oh no. No. This is bad. Who are these people? Right. I think I know them. But they're all sleeping on a pile on the ground and I'm the first one to wake up. Who put us here? What even is this place? God, it's freezing. Cold. Hard. Metal feels like I'm the freezer of a morgue. Even standing up is difficult. Legs cramped. Still dizzy. But I need to figure out where I am and how to get out of here. Look, it seems impossible. Wide room. Bigger than a small apartment with zero furniture. The floor, walls and ceiling is the same pattern of these metallic panels. It looks like a door on one of those walls, but I can't figure out a way to open it. Let me listen. I can't hear anything. Wait, there's a ventilation system on the ceiling, but it's impossible to reach. It's over 10 feet, it looks like. One thing's for sure, though. The air is cleaner than I remember ever breathing on our sad, rotten little Earth. Is this some kind of trick? Something played on me by one of these people unconscious on the ground.
24 hours ago.
Did you hear that, miss? I have more important things to do than wait for your boss.
I'm not sure if I'd call him my boss, sir. The world is in shambles. Nobody really needs the last specimen of what was the billionaire's race. Well, I mean, don't tell him I said that. Oh, I shouldn't have. See, he's only my friend, and
Get to the point, young lady.
Well, my name is Rachel, and...
David, hello. Hey, how are you? How have you been? Hold on, let me take this off. Annoying, stupid thing.
You're lucky to have that kind of mask, you know. It's probably the last of its kind. The reports tell us that the contaminated air is #1 killer at the moment. Even worse than the rebels, if you can believe it. There's at least one dead body in every corner of this town. To think that we're supposed to be the lucky ones. The survivors.
Shut up, man. You don't have to tell me how screwed up we are, okay? I know it. I know this is hell. We're doomed, there's no God, no hope, and nobody's coming to help. I know. That's why I want to leave, but I need your help. You're the closest thing this sorry excuse of a town has for figure of power.
This again. I told you, Jackson. The last of the spaceships departed Earth months ago. There's nothing left. No way to leave this dying husk of a planet. So I suggest you either learn to live more humbly and share the last of your meaningless fortune with the poor souls around you, or do like them that didn't see the point of living.
There's no need to get so dramatic. You and I, David, we're not so different. Don't you remember? All political leaders fled the planet, left you behind to handle this sad survivors camp. My family bought an entire spaceship, left me here behind. You want to save these fools that look up to you, and I don't want to be like my family. They're getting impatient. They need a leader, a savior. Don't you want to be a hero?
What do you have?
A prototype. It passes safety protocols, but it just wasn't profitable at the moment. It's collecting dust in an abandoned hangar. It only needs a pilot, and passengers to take away from here and towards a safe place. Freedom. A life. Everything we all want. Right?
Back in the present, in the mysterious room.
What the fuck? What is this? Where am I? What did you do to me?
Hey, calm down, man. Don't put your hands on me.
You got 10 seconds to tell me what exactly is going on, or I'll make sure you don't get to speak a word ever again.
Let me go! Don't you get it? I'm as lost as you are. One moment we're all standing there, and then... Chad, I don't know, man. We all woke up here.
Here? Huh. And what exactly is here, city boy? What the hell is this freezing shoebox?
Excuse me. What's going on?
What's this? Where? Oh my god. Oh my god. Jackson?
What?
Jackson!
Rachel,
What's happening?
wrong?
I can't.
What? Rachel? Oh my god. Hey, calm down. Look at me. Look at me. I'm here with you. You're okay. Come on, babe. Breathe.
Don't. Do not call me babe.
Sorry, I didn't mean... Where are we? What's he doing?
He found the door. He must think he can kick his way out of here.
David, where are we? What is this?
Can everyone please stop asking the same stupid questions? We don't know. We just have to get out.
Why? What happened? Are we in danger?
My family. Where's my family? Are they in here? Listen, has anyone seen my family? I need to be with them.
I have an entire community that depends on me. So, are you going to help me escape this place or not?
Sure. I can try.
Is she okay? Ma'am, hello?
Let it be, miss. We need to focus on finding a way out of here.
Okay, and then what, huh? We don't even know who kidnapped us. Don't we need weapons? We need to come up with a plan. Hey, is anyone listening?
Hello? Can anybody hear us? Stephanie, kids, darling, are you there? Please, someone help us.
Aren't you going to help them?
Babe, I'm thinking of a plan here. Why don't you go make sure that woman isn't dead?
1 year ago.
Rachel, are you okay? Hey, it's okay. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I know it's awful what happened.
It just doesn't seem fair, you know. My dad lived long enough to see every bit of the final downfall of this stupid planet. He survived wars. He escaped cities on fire. He survived hunger, thirst, and every disease that was waiting out there for him, with sharp fangs. And he dies like this. Some rebel with a knife that wanted to take his mask and his clothes off his back.
It's tragic.
It's absurd. The world is ending, Jack. Everything is on fire, contaminated or collapsing under its own weight, and still, we find the time and energy to kill each other? Is it that easy to turn into a monster?
It's called being desperate. I'm not saying it's right, but at this point, I'd do anything to keep myself alive. Oh, and to protect you too.
You're the last friend I have, Jackson. Everyone else is dead. But I don't want that. To become desperate monsters. I just want to live.
Then could you at least move in with me? I still have the bunker and more than enough supplies for both of us. I promise. I'll save you, babe.
I'm not sure you get it. But, alright.
Back in the present.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, why the hell am I in a spaceship?
Oh my god, you're alive! Hey, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, and you're a nice vision to wake up to, but can you tell me what the fuck is going on?
Thanks. No one really knows, but did you say spaceship?
I did, yes. I worked as a pilot my entire life. I recognize the smell of the air on these things. I've never seen this kind of surface, though. Here, help me get up. Oh, fuck. Oh, there. There you have it. Oh, God, hip injury. The only reason that kept me from piloting the last ship that escaped the planet. Not tragic at all, is it?
Are you okay?
Diane, you're awake. How are you feeling?
What do you think? I'm fucking awful. David, please tell me your last attempt at sustaining a government paid off, and you got us into this weird spaceship against our will. I don't even want to think of other options.
I'm sorry, what? A spaceship?
Hey. What the hell are you guys talking about over there?
Who is this woman again?
Guys? Hey, everyone, I think there's something coming.
Shit. What are those things?
Oh my god!
Oh, hell no! You won't catch me alive, you ugly ass motherfuckers.
Look! We killed one!
Gross. I think I'm gonna throw up.
Just shut the fuck up and try to help them.
They're too strong! Grab one of the fallen weapons!
Rachel, don't!
Don't tell me what to do.
No, I got this.
Thanks.
David!
There are too many.
Well, I'm not giving up. Ah!
God, fuck, no! Ah!
3 months ago.
Shh, it's okay. Please don't cry. Look, if you cry, your mom will cry, and that will make me cry. You want to see your old dad crying? Come on, I look so ugly when I cry, kids. Please. Now, that's better. Kids, I need to stay here with your mom, okay? Be very quiet. Stay still. And no matter what you see or hear, don't move. Don't make a noise. Never under any circumstances take off your masks, okay? I'll come back in a minute. I promise. Alright, here I go. That one up there is the last house for a good stretch of land. Please, God, let it be empty. We're running out of supplies. The kids have started to cough. We desperately need shelter and...
You have 5 seconds to get out of my property.
I'm sorry.
4 seconds?
Please, we're desperate. I have a wife and 2 kids with me.
3.
God, please, I'm begging you. We're going to die out here.
2.
Please, just one night. God damn it, just let the kids drink a glass of water, please.
1 night. That's it. Fuck, why did I do that? I said no more guests. They always lie, cheat, betray, steal. They fucking die in my arms. What the fucking hell am I thinking? I really can't let them stay one more than a night. 1 week at most. Fuck, I don't care if he has children. I really fucking don't. God damn it, I think I'm fucked.
Back in the spaceship.
Stephanie? Stephanie, are you okay?
Who's Stephanie?
You can talk. Get away from me, let me go. What are you?
Hey! Hey! Over here!
Oh shit, it's you. I thought one of those things was talking to me. Are we in?
Laboratory, it seems. You were just dreaming. We're all starting to wake up. If those things understand us, they don't want to talk. One of them just stares at the screens beside our beds. 2 of them stand by the door.
Look at them. Like giant, slimy insects.
I'm going to crush them one by one.
Please, don't do anything rash.
Don't tell me what to do, city boy.
Shit. It wasn't a nightmare. Oh my god. We're all going to die.
Come on, Rachel, calm down. Freaking out won't help us.
Is she okay? Why is she still sleeping?
Well, she was drunk when we met her. I doubt that alien anesthesia is the only drug in her system.
Hey, don't be rude.
A little bit of respect, please. She's had a rough time.
We all have. Anyone still alive has been going through a hell worse than dying.
Wait, now hold on a minute. Did you say alien? Are we sure that's what we're dealing with?
I don't know, man. Maybe these screeching 7 feet tall monsters are completely normal things.
Diane did mention we're on a spaceship.
Yeah, I fucking did. Thanks for listening. Now, can we please come up with a plan?
A plan?
Oh, I have a plan, alright. Kill each and every one of these motherfuckers before they kill us.
Oh yeah? And how do you plan to do that, tough guy? They already knocked you out once.
Listen here, shithead. I'll kill you too if I have to. So, don't get in my way, understood?
Jesus Christ, you really are like children.
Okay, but suppose we can fight these creatures. Then what?
Well, seems to me we'd have a spaceship all to ourselves. And, likable or not, we do have a pilot among us.
Don't even think about it.
Why not? You could be our savior.
I appreciate your faith in me, sweetheart, but my savior days are over. I fucked up my only chance. I didn't get to pilot a regular ship. What makes you think I could fucking figure out an alien one?
Because you're our only hope. Because we need to survive. Fuck. I really, really want to live.
I don't know.
Hold on.
Now what?
We have a spaceship. We have a pilot. We have a chance that we thought we'd never have. But maybe this isn't about us. Have any of you stopped to think about the people we've left on Earth? I don't know about the rest of you, if you have someone, anyone. But I have a family, and I will do anything in my power to get back to them, even if only to die beside them. But now, what if I have a chance at saving them? What if we could drive this ship back to Earth and save as many people as we could? I mean, we don't know how large this thing is, but just the 2 rooms we've seen would be enough to hold a few dozen people, don't you think?
Fuck yeah.
Wait, really?
No offense, but I don't give a shit about any of you. You closed the doors of your big houses, you hoarded your resources, you claim to be civilized just to be selfish. You forgot about everyone but yourselves, and you cursed and attacked those of us that did whatever desperate thing we had to do to survive. You don't know what it is to kill feral animals with your own hands, climb out of the rubble of fallen houses, the taste of decay and human flesh in your mouth, and have brothers and sisters die in your arms? But I do. I have my own messed up family down there on Earth. They depend on me to survive. They were waiting for my instructions. I never promised something better, but I swore I would fight by their side until I die. I'm going back for them, for my people, and for this random guy's family. You can join us, or you can be the first ones to die.
I'm not dying. None of us is dying. I know I haven't always made the right choices. Nobody makes it to the end of the world alive without a few sins in their past. But I took responsibility, and I accepted the role of provisional leader to help the people around me. There are so few of us left, but we have a community, and they deserve a chance as much as any of us. I'm going back. We all are.
Is everyone serious right now?
What do you mean?
We are literally pinned down on lab tables, and you guys are planning to what? To save humanity? Look at those monsters! They could snap us in half if they wanted to. Don't they look hungry? Thirsty? Evil? What do you think we're here for? They're going to open us up, and they're going to feast on our organs. They're going to make us watch. They're going to cut us into tiny little pieces and figure out what we're made of. And then they're going to discard us into the freezing cold, infinitely lonely space like absolute trash.
Jackson, stop! Stop!
No! Rachel, we don't stand a chance. Even if we did, our best bet is getting as far away from Earth as possible. Not to return. We finally have a chance at survival, and these people want to waste it in some noble cause. Are you desperate for salvation? Weren't you desperate enough for a purpose to follow me around like a lost puppy? You wanted a life, Rachel. You don't want to be a hero.
Shut up! What good are life and a fortune if you're just going to end up alone anyway? I'm not going to be like you, Jackson. I'm with them.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt, but I think one of them is leaving.
Okay, there's just one of them guarding the door against 6 of us. This is our chance to make the first move.
What do you say, Diane? Do you think you can figure out a way to pilot this ship? Only you can do it.
No, it's fucking impossible. But you know what? I'm ready to fucking die trying for it.
He's free.
I'll deal with the big cockroach guard. Free yourselves and find a way to lock this door. Now!
12 hours ago.
Okay, team. Everyone still with me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I need you to listen to me. And listen carefully, because this is a big one. Understood? We're the last honest predators in the world. In the remnants of the cities, they call us rebels, officially. But we know what they really think. They shunned us and they exiled us. They disapprove of our methods of survival. They look down on us and believe they are superior just for what they think is staying civilized. Well, they don't care about our lives. We don't care about their rules. There's an earthquake, we crawl up from the ruins. Feral animals try to take over the cities, and we slit their throats and wear their furs. We don't take sides in any war. We take advantage of the chaos. We kill what we have to, steal what we want, eat what we can, and survive in any way possible.
Sir, yes, sir.
Well, time to get some supplies. Do you guys see that big house behind me? I've been there before. It's just one woman, and I think she's injured. So, piece of cake. Let me take care of her. Then we can go in and take shelter for a while. Even outcasts like us deserve a roof over our heads. All right, wait for my signal, okay? Now come on, lady. Don't give me any trouble. All right. Everything's quiet. Just 2 lights are on. Oh, wait. Fuck. She's turning on more lights. Is she not alone? Never mind. I can handle this. I'll take them down one by one, as I've done before. Oh, shit. Children. That wasn't part of the plan. But, okay. I can...
Kids, come back inside. It's not safe.
Oh, no.
Excuse me. Who?
Hey, is everything all right over here? Hey! Who the fuck are you?
Okay, listen up, shitheads. Don't do anything stupid, and maybe I'll let you live.
I don't fucking think so, asshole. Now, why don't you take a step back and explain why you are on my property? Make the wrong move, and I'll kill you.
Oh, yeah? You and how many?
Guys, what's going on out here?
Rachel, step back.
Okay, let's all calm down.
Honey, take the kids inside. No matter what you hear, stay inside. Okay?
Now you have 10 fucking seconds to run away from here as fast as you can, or I'll shoot your dick off first before I aim for your head. Understood?
Ah, please. I'm not scared of you, sweetheart. I can take down all of you if I want to.
10, 9, 8.
Now, nobody
7.
has to shoot.
Jackson,
We
look.
can solve this
5.
in a civilized
4.
In the
manner.
sky?
Not
3,
now, Rachel.
2.
What is it with the sudden cold? What's going on?
Whoa! What the hell? What's this light?
What's going on? What are you doing?
Back in the spaceship.
Good job.
Thanks. No hard feelings about...
What? Attempting to take over my house? Threatening to kill me and my friends? No, it's all good. I figure we're more useful to each other alive right now, right? Fuck. You're like a feral dog, but you strike me as loyal. And do we have any other option but to trust each other?
Right. Can you figure this out? Careful, lady.
Oh shit, sorry. Well, it's certainly more powerful than any other taser I've seen, but the basics are the same. I trust it can take one of those monster fucks down, but we're going to need more than this. How are things going with the door?
Good.
It's not good. We can pile as much junk as we want in front of the door. It's not gonna stop them from barging in and eating us alive.
Hey, this makeshift barrier can buy us precious seconds of life. This can make the difference between life and death. We need to try everything we can. I'm going to go back to my family.
Whatever. Any luck figuring out their language?
Obviously not. It's impossible to understand these signs, but luckily it's a very descriptive interface on the screen. Everything has pictures. Us, the test they were going to do. And there's a map we're trying to memorize. This should block the door, I think.
They could probably open it themselves from outside, but It's something. They don't have fingertips. You basically have to punch the screen to equal the strength of their claws.
Wait, Rachel, you said something about the test they were going to do to us?
Yes, take a look. These are pictures of, well, they look like torture devices to me. It's disturbing.
You're fucking shaking. Come here.
Jesus Christ, is that like a chainsaw?
I didn't know you could combine a mallet and a scythe.
What kind of tests were they going to make? Turn us into a pulp and put us into test tubes?
Stop acting like babies and focus. These aren't just toys. These can be weapons. If we can find them, we might stand a chance against.
Oh no, you're not getting in.
Quick, let's find those weapons.
They aren't here. We moved every table in the room.
Could it be under a secret door or something? Try every button.
I'm trying.
Come on, Rachel. You've got this.
Got it.
Where did that come from?
Who cares? It's a lot of weapons. Take a pick and fight for your lives. Now!
They're almost through the barricade. Get ready.
Remember, they're just disgusting giant bugs. Nothing to be scared about.
Fuck, there's plenty to be scared about. Here comes the first one.
I got it.
That was a good one. Watch your back.
We got this. Keep it up. Push forward. Let's get to the hallway. Let's go, let's go, let's go! 16 hours ago.
Well, this is it. Diane Welch's farm, or what's left of it.
It's still much better than anything I've ever seen in years. It looks almost alive, unlike the rest of the planet. I could have imagined myself living somewhere just like this. You could almost hear birds singing in the distance.
All birds are dead, babe. They roasted on the burning skies, fell to pieces in toxic water, attacked little children, and then ate them in retaliation. Don't get sentimental. We're here for an escape mission, not to make friends in a cozy country house. Focus.
All right.
She's an old friend. I think very highly of her. Please, be on your best behavior.
Is she going to be on her best behavior, though? I heard she went cuckoo after her accident.
And I heard that you're so fucking annoying that your rich parents left you behind to be all home alone in an apocalyptic world. Am I wrong?
We started on the right foot? Huh? I'm losing my patience here. David, I talked to you about a very secret project, and you've brought me to another damn survivors camp.
Hey, careful. These people are my family now. If you want a pilot, you'll have to take all of us.
I thought you wanted us to leave.
Shut up.
Come on, Jackson. Be reasonable. I know it's your ship, but we have an obligation to save as many people as possible. I have a responsibility. I shouldn't even, but...
Anyway, there is space, Jack.
I don't think any of you understand the gravity of the situation. Listen, I want each and every one of you to listen to me very carefully. Do you want to believe that I consider myself better than all of you? Fine, I sure as hell do. But like it or not, if we are still alive on this earth at this moment, we have a lot in common. None of you could look me in the eyes and tell me you haven't escaped a natural disaster of biblical proportions. The earth's shaking for long minutes until you're sure it's never gonna stop. The rain melting through the rooftops, the walls, the concrete, and people's eyes. Or you haven't seen animals die or kill in completely unnatural ways. A blinded pack of wolves through the city. Crows that caught fire slamming through the windows. Cats and dogs puking acid that burns through the clothes. I would bet everything I have that you all have lost someone that you love dearly, and your grief is a ghostly beast. I would have to venture into saying that most of you have had to kill to stay alive this long. Am I wrong?
We get it. We're doomed. But isn't that all the more reason to try to help others?
It only means we have to save ourselves as quickly as possible, no matter the price.
You know what? I don't care. You want to be selfish monsters, fine by me. Just go away quickly. I have a family to take care of, so if you'll excuse me, my kids are in the backyard and I heard a strange noise, so...
A strange noise? I don't like that. Let me get my gun.
Okay, let's take it easy. There's nothing outside. What's the worst that could happen?
Back in the spaceship.
Well, that was fun. Look at all the slimy aliens we killed. I could go for another round.
Hey, man, you're bleeding.
Yeah. Here, take my jacket. Wrap it around the wound on your arm. Man, it looks like one of those fucking things bit you. Don't give me that look and accept the damn jacket. Look, you're no use to us if you bleed yourself to death, right?
Okay. And what now?
We have no time to lose. We don't know how many of those things are in the ship, so I don't think we can plan to kill them all off one by one as some of us want. We have to reach the pilot's cabin alive, set course back to Earth, and try not to die in the process. Everyone in agreement?
Yep, good as plan as any.
Yep.
According to the map we found in the lab, the ship is kind of oval-shaped. We must have woken up in a storage room at the back. Now we're closer to the middle. If we take this hallway, eventually we have to reach the front of the ship where the pilot should be.
Is no one gonna suggest hiding and hoping for the best? Try to earn the aliens' trust so there's no need to fight? Oh, I know, better yet, let's kill ourselves before they have a chance to do it. Come on. I'm exhausted, and my hands are stained with this greenish blood, and I want to puke, and...
Shut the fuck... Jesus Christ, shut up. I really want you to never speak again. But also, there's something wrong.
I hear it too. It's barely there though. Like an echo. Fluttering. It's as if a moth had crawled inside your ear and was moving around in your brain.
It's getting closer. Everyone, grab a weapon. This thing has a heartbeat. I think the fucking devil's coming for us.
You wanted to scare me. Fine, I'm scared. What's going on?
That can't be good. Guys, the floor is shaking. It feels like the walls are closing in. Do they have an army coming for us?
Worse. It's much worse than that.
8 months ago.
Hey, I just wanted to properly say goodbye before you left.
Yeah, that was a nice speech from you. Thanks for coming. It means a lot to these people, Mr. President.
I wish. There's hardly any need for any kind of government in a world that has its days numbered.
Nah, you're wrong. I meant what I said. You are a sign of hope for these people. Hope, after all, is the only thing that keeps any of us going.
You only say that because you're full of hope yourself. Look at that dazzling smile of yours. Full of life. No. These people look to me for hope. Because they think I can fix their lives. But I can't. You, on the other hand, you're a hero. Aren't you scared?
Yeah, I have piloted planes my entire life, old friend. I've moved on to spaceships by now. In no time you'll see me piloting the next ship away from this cursed planet. Taking this one plane to and from a safe location will be a piece of cake. Mayday! Mayday! Can anyone hear me? Mayday! Mayday! Please, someone! Is anybody there? God damn it! I'm begging you, please. Somebody! Is anyone listening? There has to be a living soul out there that's listening. Please! Please. God, an angel. Please, give me a miracle here. Please, please, listen to me. Don't let me die here. I don't want to die here. There's so much to do. God damn it, I want to help. I want to save these people. This can't end here. God, fuck, the devil. Anyone listening, please, don't let us go. What are you doing here?
I wanted to see you. I needed to check in on you. I know it was horrible. Diana, I'm so sorry. The nurses told me you've been blaming yourself.
Who the fuck else am I going to blame? I was piloting the plane. Now those people are dead, dying, hardly recovering. Fuck, I ruined my own life too. The spaceship? Yeah, that's leaving tomorrow. Fuck, I should have died in that plane. I should have died. I should have... I was a fool, David. There's no point in fighting a doomed destiny. We're all gonna die on this rotten fucking planet, and fuck, it's fucking time we embrace it.
Back in the spaceship.
Run! Run as fast as you can! Don't think, just run!
Yo, what the hell is that thing?
It's just like the others, but the size of an elephant. Hundreds of eyes, deadly claws, dozens of legs sharp as swords piercing through the metal. Jesus Christ, I think that beast is actually drooling for us, oozing gray bubbling liquid. Oh my god.
Don't let it catch you! Run!
I can't.
What?
I can't run. I can't.
What?
It hurts. God fucking burns too
Oh
badly.
my god, your injury! Hold on, Diane. Please keep going.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not letting you. I have an idea. Are you ready? Watch my back.
What the hell are you doing? Where does this fucking hallway even lead to?
Just trust me. And keep watch for regular-sized aliens. They're coming after us.
Gladly.
Where did those two run off to?
I don't know. Should we turn?
Look out!
Holy shit, those aliens came out of nowhere. They got Carlos and David.
Keep running! Keep running! The big one is still after us!
Hey, it stopped moving.
Don't care! Keep running!
Jackson, there's something wrong with it.
Is it dying? Choking on something? Oh! 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 Did that thing just spit at us? What is this gooey shit? Oh my god! I can't move!
No. I can't die. Not like this. Stephanie, my kids? No!
Two years ago.
Jackson!
They're gone. They're all fucking gone. I can't believe it. They actually left. They left me. What the fuck? What the actual fuck?
Jack, you're scaring me. Please calm down.
No, Rachel. I won't fucking calm down. You know who was on that ship? The last few members of my family. You know who wasn't? Me. They all went away and left me here, knowing I would die. I would starve. I would get killed, eaten, regurgitated, and then burned along with every other worthless and pathetic body left on this totally ruined planet. That ship is a death sentence with my name on it, and all my family participated in it.
I'm the only one who has to deal with him. I have to. He's my only friend. Doesn't mean he's a good friend. Maybe neither of us are. We have nothing in common except being alive and lonely. I'm not brave enough to walk away. He wasn't brave enough to face his family. Someday I will tell him. I'll look him in the eye and say, Jackson, your family didn't leave you. You made it your life purpose to fight with, lie to, and betray every member of your family until none of them could stand you, and then you demanded apologies that no one gave you. You were too stupid to apologize yourself, and even then, they still gave you a place, you asshole. Your family offered you a place in their stupid magic spaceships, and you said no. You said you'd rather die, because you're too proud, because you wanted to be difficult, play hard to get, and then you got angry when they actually left without you. Jackson, are you okay?
No. I think I've lost my mind over this.
What do you mean?
I don't know if I'll be able to leave this room. To act like a remotely decent person again. I'm thinking I want to kill myself right here. Right now. I'm thinking maybe if I killed someone. Anyone. You. I would feel better. I could do worse though. I have my family's weapons. I could end everyone's misery. I could end this planet for once and for all. Wouldn't that be a magnificent way to go? I, Jackson Harper, responsible for the ending of the human race. I want... I want my family.
Fuck. Listen, Jack. Calm down, okay? Breathe, I'm here with you. You know there's nothing I want more than to live. We can't do that, right? Come on, there has to be something in your family's fortune that can save us. Come on, Jackson. You have to keep it together a little longer. Can you?
Back in the spaceship.
Rachel! Hurry up, there's more aliens coming, and I don't know if... Oh my god, is that some sort of car? That's fantastic. I could kiss you right now. How did you even know?
I told you, they had a very descriptive map. I just need to figure out how it works. I don't have 8 legs, but I don't see pedals anyway. Could it just work with the touchpad?
Did you just crash our alien car?
Don't laugh. It's not easy, okay? I think I got it now.
I really hope you do. The aliens are coming.
Can you hold that weird alien weapon while I drive?
Yes, just drive. Rachel! They fucking jump now?
Diane, there are too many of them. They're too evil. I can feel their eyes, cold and soulless, staring at me from every corner of the ship. I can feel them breathing down my neck, like spiders crawling all over my skin. Their dozen legs all over me. Their claws pulling me apart. Little bloody pieces. Cracking bone. Splashing blood.
Rachel, hey. Calm down. I'm here with you. We're going to live, okay? We're gonna make sure of it. I promise. Just drive, Rachel. I have your back. Take us to the pilot's cabin fast.
Diane, we're almost there. You're doing a great job, but they keep coming.
Yeah, you ran over a few of them yourself. That was nice. Now we're going to need a distraction. What are you doing?
I got it. I know what to do. Get out of the car. This is our distraction.
Fucking what?
The car. Let's blow this baby up. Let the fire and ruins block the hallway.
Hey, city boy, are you okay?
I was abducted by aliens with 6 other people, and it somehow got worse. We're in a small room locked in a cage while that monster watches over us. Look at it, Carlos. 12 legs, thin and quick. Are those spikes or hair? It's revolting. We've killed a few, but we haven't gotten to see them so closely, so calmly. Look at its scales. Surprisingly fragile, but no less disturbing for it. I think they're already bleeding from the cracks between their scales. Imagine your entire body constantly bleeding, leaking that roiling, slimy liquid as it drips down like drool. And that smell. God! They're half dead already, I swear. The lifeless corpse of demonic cockroaches. And they captured us. They got us. They're gonna pierce through our bodies with their antenna and we'll rot just like them.
You have to stop.
What? You think we stand a chance?
Shut up, you ugly fucker. We're talking. Hey, you said so yourself, David. They're surprisingly fragile, and they're dead roaches, not human. There's only one of them against two of us, and not a lock on the cage. They're underestimating us.
Really?
Do you want to get out of here or not?
You want to get back to Earth so badly?
Tell you what, if we get out of this alive, I promise to behave a little better when we get back to Earth. I won't listen to you or obey you, but we can work together. Maybe civilization isn't doomed yet.
Let's do this.
What is this? Where are we? But God, I can't move. I can't... Is this a cocoon? It feels like gelatin, but way stiffer. Why can't I break through? Help! Help!
Shut up, idiots.
Jackson? Oh, thank God I'm not alone.
Might as well be. We're dead, Stuart. Look who's here with us.
That sound. It's like something crawling up from the pits of hell.
The monster vomited this gooey substance. You fought so hard that it hit you again and you passed out. It took us in its mouth. That terrible, unsteady darkness. God, I swear there were a million other things moving and agonizing there with us. It was so cold, Stuart. It was so bad, I was glad when it spit us out and got us stuck here on the ceiling. It's a huge room. It's the beast's home, I think, and we're not alone.
What? Who?
Humans, animals, aliens, ghosts, I don't know. The only thing clear here is that we are that monster's next meal.
No.
Don't fight it. There's no getting out of hell. Embrace it.
What are you talking about? No. I refuse to give up. I said I would go back for my family, and I will. Are you with me or not? Don't you want to live? What about Rachel?
She doesn't want me in her life. My family didn't want me in theirs. Fuck, not even I would want me to be around. Death would be a mercy at this point. I should be grateful. This was at least more interesting than dying on Earth out of sadness and desperation like everyone else.
Is this who you really are? Is this how it ends for you? Listen, there's still...
Don't you dare talk to me about hope. If I help you escape, will you shut up and leave me here?
I couldn't leave you.
The monster is walking back and forth from one of the rooms to the other. I've been so lifeless that it didn't even bother with me. One of my arms is free. Falling from here would kill you. But if we fall on the monster and one of us manages to escape...
Are you serious?
Here it comes. Count to 10. Pray that the other victims don't catch you on your way out. Ready?
I'm ready.
1 year ago. I'm sorry, man. You didn't deserve to die. You don't know me. I don't know you. But there's a group of people that depends on me. Good people. They're desperate, but they're my family. And whatever I can steal from you right now might keep us all alive a day or two longer. So, I had to do it. If I meet you in another life, in heaven, or most probably in hell, I'll owe you one. I'm sorry.
Get away from him!
Oh shit!
Dad! Oh my god, Dad! Why? How dare you? Come out and show your face! Yeah, I have a gun too, motherfucker! Show your face!
Shit, I didn't. I didn't see he had someone with him. Maybe I shouldn't have. Shit, but I needed to.
Ah! Where are you, murderer? Come out and fight me! Kill me too, I don't care! He was the last person I had! He was the last good person in this hell of a planet, for all I care! And you killed him! You killed and robbed him! What are you? An animal? A monster? You beast, come out and face me! How dare you? How dare you do this? As if the world hasn't ruined enough already. Is this how it ends? Turning against each other like this? Not surviving together, but feasting on each other's corpses to make it through? Come out! How dare you? How dare you? Oh, Dad.
Back in the spaceship.
Why do you think they haven't attacked us yet?
I'm guessing they don't have cameras. Or they might have bigger problems than two women staring through the window at their pilot.
Well, have you learned enough just watching?
Let's fucking hope so. As you mentioned, it is a very descriptive interface. They seem to have modeled the system after their own image. If you can understand the mechanics of a flying insect, this should be manageable. Anyone can do it.
Not anyone. I think you're here for a reason.
Shh! There are footsteps coming.
I'm ready.
Wait, I think that's David and Carlos, and oh my god, they look like a fucking mess. Carlos is almost missing a damn arm. Their eyes look crazy feral. They have more wounds than I can count. They're covered in blood, and it's not just theirs.
But hey, we've kept our weapons.
They captured us. I lost count of how many of these monsters we killed on our way here. Are we ready? Where are the others?
I'm afraid they haven't made it yet. What do we do?
No need to worry now. Look,
Is that Stuart? Did he just fall from the ceiling inside the pilot's cabin?
Shit, look, he's gonna kill the pilot.
Nice. Rachel, Diane, get in and turn this thing around back to Earth.
Piece of cake.
good job, man. Nice. Where's the other one? The rich kid.
Hey, I couldn't. He said,
No.
I'm sorry. There was no other way.
No! Are you serious? No, not Jackson!
Rachel, listen to me. If that was the only thing he could do to help, then he died doing the noblest thing he did in his life. Maybe the only thing. Don't let it go to waste. If he knew he was doomed, then he sacrificed so not all of us would be. Now the three of you get in there, go back to Earth, and live the lives we all fought so hard for you and the rest of humanity to have. Understood?
David, what do you mean? You're fucking not. What the hell do you think you're doing?
All this would have been for nothing if the aliens broke into the cabin and kill us all before we land. You stay here. David and I will guard the door. No questions asked. You guys have families, purpose, and passion. Stay generous. Don't abandon my people. Rachel, I owed you one. Now, goodbye. Don't fucking try to stop us!
What?
Wait, no.
Don't fucking do this! We can do it together.
Should we try to join them?
Look, they blocked the door with one of the weapons. I'd say if you wanted to stay awake, don't touch it.
Alright. I'm tired of people dying. I'm tired of these sick and disgusting fucking aliens, and I want to go home. Ugh. Okay, don't touch anything and do as I say. We're going back to Earth. Expanding the view of the satellite view. Still in our solar system. Previous stop, Earth. Setting the course now. Hang on. stabilizing on the engines. Fuck, I can't read these instructions, but it's so goddamn freezing here inside the cabin.
Diana, do something! I think the aliens are starting to get near, and the guys won't be able to fight them if they freeze to death.
I'm trying. Increasing the ventilation. Shutting off activity in the back of the ship. We're doubling speed in 3, 2, 1.
This is horrible. Are you sure we're at least going back to Earth?
Well, can't you see it?
Amazing. Look, it's our planet. Damn it. It looks depressing even from here.
Yup. Contaminated oceans, entire continents on fire, barren land, and little to no lights. That's home. We're going back to Earth for a suicide mission, but we're saving as many people as we can. We're saving them.
But we have to hurry. They can't hold the door much longer, and it's 2 of them against a small army.
Diane, we're not gonna make it.
We have to. We have to make it. Come on. Increasing power. Activating auxiliary engine. Listen, this is impossible to fucking decipher completely just like this. It doesn't make any sense. We might freeze. Fuck, we might start to lose oxygen. Just pray I manage to land this thing safely. We're doubling speed again in 3, 2, 1.
"24 hours later."
Am I alive? Everything hurts. Please. God, let me die quickly. Stop dragging this on. And on. A bird? Oh, I thought they were all dead. It's a nice melody to die to. What's this light? A hole? Through the ship? Could it be that we made it back to Earth? Oh, they're all dead now. This time, they're all going to die. No!
Part 1. Cataclysm. The 3 astronauts were staring down at the surface of the moon from the Orion as it was docking with the lunar gateway. The sight was astonishing, to say the least. They were close enough to see the curve of the planetary satellite, with its terrific white glow against the dark void behind it. A pearl latched in the abyss. Then, as all 3 were feeling the intensity of the moment of their approach, something odd appeared on the horizon of the moon. Piercing the darkness of space were tremendous edifices as pearly white as the cosmic body they were on, shattering all understanding of Earth's planetary companion in an instant. Nobody expected to find the signs of civilization upon mankind's return to the moon. "I don't understand," the commander of the Orion blurted out, admitting defeat for the first time in his life and drawing more attention to himself from his crewmates than he had intended. The artificial structures that stood tall on the pale ground of the moon looked old. They were old. Tens of thousands of years old. Hundreds of thousands. Millions. As old as the moon itself, even. Nobody knew. How could they? No one had ever seen them before. Mission Control, we have a problem. Elaborate further on the issue. There's no right way to say this, so I'm just gonna say it. We're looking down at what seems like the ruins of an ancient city on the surface. After a brief silence, NASA's Mission Control answered with a round of applause and laughter. We all appreciate the joke, Commander. Really helps release the tension right here. Sir, that wasn't a joke, he replied, but hesitated. For a moment, the commander thought it might have indeed been a joke. A cosmic joke played on humanity for the amusement of beings far greater than anything that could be imagined. Ones that could create entire cities or complete cosmic bodies out of nothing. Beings as terrible as they were divine. The three-man crew of the Artemis III mission was definitely ill-prepared for what had been laying in wait on the moon for the longest of times. Dormant, buried, or imprisoned there. Mission Control, how should we proceed? Another silence, followed by more laughter. Watch out for booby traps, they replied, and laughter boomed from the comms yet again, making the commander and his crewmates very nervous. None on the Orion were laughing. I'd like to say that we're screwed, but I think you already know that. Let's proceed as planned and head to the lander after we're fully docked. Once we're down there, I guess we're gonna have to take a look at those ruins before we do anything else. The commander addressed his crew after the transmission with NASA was over. Yes, sir, was the reply he got. Not the one he wished for. They couldn't just turn back anyways. The three of them would be the first humans to step back on the moon after more than half a century. There was an entire planet waiting for them to go live from the surface. So following the procedure for landing on the moon to the letter, in the steps of the brave souls that manned the Apollo missions, the crew of Artemis III found themselves on the surface of Earth's natural satellite without a hitch. Mission Control, proceeding with the lunar rover at Site Alpha. Artemis III, you have a go-ahead from Control. We're receiving visual. Mission Control answered, and after a slight lag, the obvious shift in tone put the fear of God in the commander's bones. We've seen the ruins. We're assembling experts from around the globe to get to the bottom of it. Apologies from ground control for the miscommunication previously. Stay safe, Commander. We don't know what you'll be dealing with once you reach the site. Acknowledged, the commander replied. He did not expect that answer. He prayed that what he and his crew had seen was an illusion, a mirage, anything other than what NASA had confessed to seeing as well. In just a few clicks, the Artemis III crew were on their way. The rover stirred up the regolith, creating a cloud of deadly dust as it moved toward the ruins. Barely anything could be seen from the small windshield or the front-facing cameras of the vehicle, so the crew relied mostly on their radar. As it beeped, the tension in the cabin grew and weighed heavily among the three people inside. They were expecting to be excited and elated once they touched ground. They were supposed to be heroes. And yet, they were three shivering astronauts facing something more terrifying than the vacuum of space. An impossibility. The outline of a massive monument started looming between the moon dust. Closer, yet indiscernible. Alien and brutalist. The front walls of the most mesmerizing monument to stand tall beyond the limits of Earth could barely be seen from inside the rover. But it could be felt.
Mission Control, we have arrived at Site Alpha. Parking the rover and making our way to the structures. Are we online?
Artemis 3, that's a negative. As of 3 hours prior, this mission has been classified. Our assembly of experts is currently working on a possible explanation for the appearance of the ruins.
Mission Control answered coldly and succinctly, without much further instruction. Everyone was as baffled as the astronauts. Most of all, the archaeologists who were part of the experts NASA had called upon. There were things they could recognize in the design and markings on the monuments, but none of them made any sense. The commander knew that he would have answers much faster than anyone on Earth possibly could. He and his crew were there, boots on the ground, overshadowed by a monolithic monument of origins beyond comprehension. Not even visiting the world's largest building had made him feel the way he felt at that moment, standing on the moon and looking up at the steep walls of the ruined edifice closest to him. There was power emanating from the structure, even though it looked long dead, neglected, and forgotten. His suit suddenly felt tight and heavy.
I'm going to proceed toward the site. The two of you stay back with the vehicle.
The commander ordered his crew via comms, who were still standing far back behind him. He tried taking a step forward in the direction of the closest building. However, his step did not feel the way it should have, considering the massive difference between the gravity of the moon and that of Earth.
What the fuck is this?
He spoke aloud again, even though he didn't want to. A lump appeared in his throat as soon as the words left his mouth. His lips felt dry, and the air in his suit became hotter, uncomfortably hotter, and denser.
Commander, I think you should come back to the rover.
His second reacted to the fear he misinterpreted in the commander's voice.
Negative. Sir, can you think of a more exciting discovery? Can you even imagine what's in there? Who built it? And when?
He asked, becoming intoxicated by the sight of the monument growing ever clearer as he was moving ever closer to it. The might of the structure had been influencing the commander's mind. Each difficult step slowly turned what had been terror, shaking his entire body, into amazement. It was the kind of amazement that had been the detriment of many explorers in the past. The killing kind. The kind of curiosity that is only rewarded in theory, and not in fact. At that moment, he was Orpheus looking back into the underworld, defying the gods, and testing his fate. He trekked on, even though he knew that he should have been leaping forward, and not feeling like moving through snow with weights on his feet, barely able to lift his boots off the ground. The two remaining astronauts watched intently at their commanding officer as he was making his way to the structure. His frame began giving the structure the context of height none of them were truly aware of until that moment. The juxtaposition of the commander and the monument was staggering. Moreover, his tiny scale compared to that of each stair leading into the edifice curdled their blood.
Sir, come back!
The commander's second pleaded with him again, fear overtaking him entirely. Then he turned to his colleague.
Can you feel that? I feel a small tremble under my feet.
There was no use in pleading, nor was there any more time.
Armstrong might have been the first one to step on the moon, but we will be remembered as the ones that found.
A sudden, otherworldly, spine-chilling, preternatural shriek interrupted the commander and made the 3 astronauts convulse in pain. It was the most horrifying sound the human ear can experience. Blood began dripping out of the astronauts' ears. Their heads were struck by the most insufferable vertigo one can feel. They trained for withstanding such things back home, and yet it annihilated their motor control in an instant. Mortal ears cannot bear the word of a god. The commander yelled out, but he could not hear his own voice. 3 astronauts, 3 husks of flesh, deaf and almost blind from the dust rising even higher around them, were all but eviscerated with a single sound. It was only one word that came from a creature so ancient that it knew how the moon had been made, and might have even aided in its build.
Who dares disturb my slumber?
A question appeared out of nowhere as a thought in the commander's mind. It was unbearable to think it, to feel it inside his head. An intrusive thought like no other, because it was not his thought that had sunk deep into his brain. It was not his question, or his inner voice asking it. If the physical pain that the commander felt was at a high point, the pain of the question being asked inside his mind was 10 times greater, twisting his thoughts to lengths beyond description. The moment in which the creature had spoken felt like a moment in which everything had paused in the liminal space between life and death. The commander was alone, and trapped in a vague darkness that is most often experienced in dreams and nightmares. All of his thoughts, a part of the question, had been suspended. He was falling and floating simultaneously in a place with no time, no spatial reference points, nothing. If it wasn't for the echo of the question and the context of his mission, the commander would have thought that he was on a spacewalk around the ISS, but no tethers were holding him from floating away and forever. How could he answer when he almost lost the sense of who he was, himself? After what seemed like time eternal, the commander finally had one of his own questions to dart back at the preternatural voice in his head that had spoken to him. It was the same question that he mirrored back to the entity. "Who are you?"
I have many names.
The phrase that had appeared as an answer in his mind sent the astronaut into another convulsive fit. One more word would kill him. Although, he was only alive still because he was being kept alive. "Are you a demon?" The commander spoke in his thoughts, yet his lips quivered and tensed as if he was trying to voice his worst fear.
A demon. Demon. Does a demon give life? Does it sustain it? Does it nourish and accompany pitiful creatures in the endless darkness of this universe? Gives them time itself and equilibrium. You may call me greatness, the pearl of the sky, the night traveler, for I am young, the dweller among the gods.
The 2 other astronauts were on the ground, thrashing uncontrollably, surrounded by a storm of moon dust they were themselves stirring up. They were having similar exchanges in the same internal oniric space with the god being that was becoming ever more wrathful and annoyed with the presence of humans in their eternal abode, as well as their reactions to meeting a god. The rest of Ya's godly words that they had directed to the astronauts were utterly unspeakable, unmentionable, unfathomable in mortal terms. Ya had burst the little commander's head with the potency of their wrath simply voiced in one divine word at the very end. They had no patience for disrespect. They had waited long enough in isolation for eons on end on their barren little satellite, forbidden by their kin to ever walk upon the planet they were sustaining. And this was the thanks they got? A god's frenzy cannot be topped. So Ya became something much worse than what a demon could ever be. In truth, the commander had it easy. Humanity would be the true receiver of the pointy end of that particular stick. His crew wasn't alive long enough to witness it either. One had bled to death inside his suit, and the other suffocated on his tongue.
Is that how you see me? After all this time illuminating your nights, holding you in place so the universe does not engulf you?
Ya spoke into the long, cold distance between the moon and the earth, looking at it rising high above their abode, blue, small, and vulnerable. Their rage was undiminished. In their isolation, Ya had become mad and vile, having only themselves and the stars to converse with. They did not take long to strike at Earth. Not even Gib himself could hold back what Ya was about to unleash upon his home, or rather, erase from existence.
If you do not see the use of me and my home, then you shall not ever receive its gifts again.
Ya leaped out of their monument of moonstone, flew into space, and the moon disappeared behind them, like it never even existed. Like it had never lit the earthly skies with its reflected splendor. And just like that, the world as humans knew it would no longer be. It took only one mighty swipe from Ia's giant hand to send the moon into oblivion.
Artemis 3, respond. Artemis 3, this is Mission Control. Respond.
Everyone at the NASA Mission Control Center in Houston was on their feet and gaping at the screens in front of them. It seemed like the only one keeping it together was the Artemis 3 ground control officer, continuing his calm hails to the team that was supposed to be on the surface of the moon. After the primary moment of shock and numerous feverish checks of all their equipment and systems, most of the people in the control room flocked to the windows. As if that would have made it any clearer, as if that would confirm what had just happened, or would have made it any more real. The crescent moon that had just begun rising over the horizon as they opened communications with Artemis 3 was no longer there. Apart from the obvious sign that the moon had disappeared from the sky, the true aftermath of its vanishing had not yet reached the Earth in full force. Sir! A panicked officer that had managed the propulsion systems of the Orion tried talking to the ground control officer. This is bad. Really bad. Could we go? We have to run. I have to help my family. My mother is disabled and she won't make it.
Artemis 3, this is Mission Control. Respond.
Jim, goddammit, they're not going to respond. An engineer and longtime friend of the ground control officer came close to him and placed his hand over his shoulder. We have to begin calculating Artemis 3. Jim, snap out of it, man! However, Jim would never snap out of it, or recover from the shock. In fact, the only thing that snapped at the moment that the moon disappeared was his mind. He was flabbergasted. A broken man. None of his scientific education had prepared him for this. The moon drifting away from the Earth's orbit slowly, sure, but for it to vanish without a trace in a fraction of a second, incomprehensible. Artemis 3, respond. In his dazed state, Jim had not realized that all of the people at the control center were in an absolute panic. The flight director was on a direct call with the president of the US, stuttering apologies because he didn't know what else to say. He couldn't articulate it. He couldn't make it sound scientific.
Did a black hole swallow it? No. Was it dark matter? What? No.
Meanwhile, calls were being made to home, calls to news outlets, emails to long-lost lovers and childhood friends, prayers, alarming stories, and shorts and reels went out into the world. The public affairs officer was sitting in one corner of the control room, her face planted in the palms of her hands, crying. All of these perfectly rational people had forgotten why they were even there, and how they were supposed to behave in disaster-type scenarios. The problem was that all of them knew what was about to happen to their planet. Well, they could at least make an educated guess. Besides, this wasn't something that was a secret or could have been kept one. It was the goddamn moon. It had disappeared. And with that, the apocalypse had commenced. The reason behind it, Yah, had finally arrived on Earth, jumping down as a giant figure of doom, a herald of death. All which they had allowed the planet to have, they took away in an instant, only a blip in astronomical time. The tremor of their landing was barely felt, since the Earth was already shaking. They had a humanoid form. However, they were anything but. Standing approximately at the height of the tallest pyramid of Giza, with limbs capable of lifting it straight from the ground, Yah was a bewildering sight to behold. Thankfully, where they had landed there was no one around to witness their terrible appearance yet. Their landing station was an ancient temple built for them in the Old Kingdom, deep into the Sahara, turned fully into sand over the millennia in which Yah had last communed with the people of Earth. Shrieking, they searched for it, becoming even more angered by the insolence of the human race for forgetting them, the nurturer, the pearl of the sky, a beacon of light in the dark night. The very few that had the misfortune of being close enough to hear Yah raging amongst the dunes instantly fell dead, suffering a pain similar to that of the commander of the Artemis 3 mission. How sad was their fate. The little nomadic tribe, moving across the desert in a route they had rarely taken, trying to make sense of the ground shaking violently, and still unaware of the disappearance of their guiding night light, died all at once, camels and all. After a lengthy tantrum, churning the sands of the Sahara and cursing to the earth beneath their feet at Gib, Yah had calmed a little. Their godly senses had finally picked up on the state of the planet, and they sat down on the scorching ground to listen carefully. The vibrations of the tectonic plates being rattled by the Earth's sudden wobble made Yah smile. The booms of the quakes cheered Yah. The distant echo of several volcanoes activating simultaneously, accompanied by vast plumes of smoke in the heavens, made Yah proud.
That will show them
they thought in all their vile and wretched madness. On the other side of the globe, rumours had started to spread. Among all the chaos of the Earth screaming in pain as it had lost its planetary companion and vital equalizer, people had still found ways to point fingers at others, at each other. Conspiracy theories were rampant. One stated that it was the Russian army that had destroyed the moon. Another one blamed the Chinese, and there was even one theory that it was a small country in the Balkans that had managed to vanquish the satellite. Religious organizations tried calming their people while simultaneously fueling their fear of Judgment Day. Cultists perished in mass suicides. Thousands of new prophets were born in a single day, on the day the moon disappeared. And people ran wild and unhinged on the streets, either pillaging or simply trying to save themselves and their families. As Yar sat in the desert, listening to the cries and screams that went on and on for days on end, people started flocking to the mountains to escape the tsunamis that were caused by the relentless quakes. While the ground did not stop shaking as the earth was still adjusting to its new conditions, many other species did not have the same ventures as the humans did. Some would eventually, if not very soon, go completely extinct, and other ones would need much more time to adapt and fine-tune their genetic construction to what their new living space would require. Yar would not move from their place in the sand for a very long time. Sometimes the cries of beached whales upon the shores of Madagascar would grab their attention, and at different times they would look on far into the sky and see falling planes spiraling out of control. The whimpers of the dying world had not yet diminished their anger. Not even the endless arrays of Maydays and SOS signals from airplanes moving in all kinds of directions and fuel tankers crossing the oceans made Ea mourn for what they had done. More terrible than a demon is the spite of a god. However, even if they did regret their doing, it could not be undone. For as powerful as Ea was, they alone could not recreate the moon out of nothing. The only thing that Ea could do was to wait patiently and listen as the world turned upside down. Months passed after the moon had disappeared, and Ea spent their days without even seeing a single human soul trek across the desert. Slithering snakes and scorpions were the only creatures that would curiously step into Ea's mighty shadow, take rest, then move away from them forever. However, as Ea was sitting motionless in the sand one night, a convoy of people was moving across the Sahara, braving its new and intense storms and the scorching sun that would sometimes remain in the sky for days on end. Such was the result of Earth's changed axis that stopped being controlled by the pearl in the sky. The god being heard them speaking, but remained still in their position, silent and unblinking, resembling an ancient and immense eidolon, forgotten in the desert. To hide from the storm that was incoming from the northwest, the convoy stopped incredibly close to Ea's inert body and made a shelter for the night behind Ea's back. The people had no idea on what they were perching up their backpacks, their supplies, and their weapons. "If a quake hits, this thing will flatten us like pancakes," one of them said, and pointed toward Ea, still convinced that the god being was no more than a massive statue. "We should be so lucky," echoed a reply. A few of the people laughed politely, but no one really thought that losing their life in a freak accident after all they had gone through was funny. Ia laughed a little on the inside, then settled deep into the sand, and listened to the chatter among the people before they all turned in for the night. The stories that the convoy shared around the fire were horrible accounts of where they had found themselves when the apocalypse had started, the day the moon had disappeared. Each one was progressively harder to listen to, harder to digest, and harder to acknowledge. As Ia was beginning to wonder why these people would choose to hide in a desert and not a lush mountain, one of them started telling the story of how he got there, and it all became clear. The world simply didn't work in the way that Ia had remembered from long ago, when they had last heard humans speak to them at their temple that once stood at the very place where they were seated. There was not much more Ia could take from the conversation, becoming endlessly confused and feeling anger rising again in their chest. Suddenly, they jumped up to their feet and looked down at the horrified convoy gaping back at them. No one screamed or tried running. The people were stunned and frozen at the sight of Ia's giant body that was inexplicably living and not a mere statue. The god being was lit from below only by the little campfire burning between the people, yet their eyes were ablaze, brighter than the stars shining in the sky above them. They opened their mouth to speak, but no words came out. Ia had lost the vile passion to kill, though at that moment one could not see that on them. They were more terrifying than they ever had been. Standing upright in the middle of a storm that was becoming ever more powerful, violently lifting the sands of the Sahara as high as their shoulders, winds deafening and whooshing around their monumental frame, Ia had finally understood what they had done in their wrath. The stare down between the behemoth Ia and the tiny people just below his feet was a short one, not longer than a minute or so. Not one person moved in the beginning, eyes fixed upon the sight so unearthly the skin crawled involuntarily. The massive humanoid shape was not only mortifying in sheer size, but by how uncanny their expression was. Almost human, yet not quite. Almost eyes, yet there were shapes in that giant's face unrecognizable to anything before seen. Those eyes. Those eyes! A yelp was heard from the convoy down below, and a cacophony of screams was ignited among the people, shattering the moment of pause, wonder, and terror. Suddenly, everyone was running, shrieking and panicking because they had nowhere to hide. In a place so vast and open as the desert, there was no escape from a creature that could see for miles in the distance, and with one leap arrive at your location, crushing you down with its bare foot. Ia was not remembered, but they were for their first time seen in their godly form. They took off their headdress, which carried the like of the moon on the very top, and placed it on the sand near the fire. Their movements were slow and certain as they bowed to put the headdress down. When Ia's face was as close to the fire as it could get, they turned and caught one of the people staring at them.
Who are you?
A whisper left their lips and they flinched, thinking that they would be put to death for the insolence of speaking to such a creature as this. The god being came closer to the person asking and gazed long into his eyes. Ia did not answer. With an abrupt leap, Ia moved deeper inside the desert, leaving the poor man standing next to the fire, transfixed by the miraculous exchange he had had with a god. For this man knew. He knew to what he was speaking, even if he did not know which one of them it was. The man watched as Iar's preternatural shape moved across the desert, becoming smaller and disappearing into the raging storm altogether. Part 2. Moonless Night. 9 centuries later, Earth was not the same planet it used to be. The moon was long gone, and it was almost forgotten. The living, the surviving people, if that was what they could be called, scattered and hid from the deep darkness that the world had fallen into. This darkness was primordial, ruthless. It was the darkness of the mind that came upon humanity as soon as they lost any and all shape of what they once understood as civilization. The world had become even more inhospitable than it already was for creatures born defenseless and weak. "What is that?" Yara whispered to her hunting partner as they were making their way into the forest. "Looks like a man," Rami replied. "A small man. Or a wraith." "Stop with that nonsense, Yara. Look at him. That is no wraith," Rami said, and walked closer to the creature that was observing them from the tree line. "Come here. Come on. We won't hurt you." He spoke in the gentlest tone he could. The fallen leaves on the ground shuffled, a few branches cracked, and the man was gone. "You scared it," Yara scoffed at Rami. "I am not the one with my spear raised to my shoulder," he growled back at her. Rami and Yara argued long about what they saw in the forest as they were hunting for the day's meal. There was a whole group of people impatiently waiting for them in the cave they called home, just a little beyond the trees. The forest was dense and lush. It was no place to build a settlement, but it had a complex system of caves that were good enough to reside in. One of the rare places on Earth that still had vegetation and animal life similar to the way it was before the disappearance of the moon. All else was transfigured almost beyond measure, and very fast. In less than a millennium, the change in the climate, the unpredictability of the rainfall, and the shifting axis that had the sun burning one place and completely avoiding another made the planet very difficult to navigate for creatures designed for another kind of environment. The chance was quite high that Yara and Rami's group were the last known relatives of humankind left on Earth. When Yara and Rami returned to their home just before sundown, they found the wraith they saw in the forest standing at the opening of their cave. He was looking curiously inside as the group was preparing the cave for their established nighttime routine, preparing for dinner, checking the fires, cleaning up the day's mess, and telling the children stories. "I'll take the left, and you right. Don't hurt him, Yara." Rami grabbed her arm and whispered back to her. She pierced him with her gaze. "You want him to kill our family, Rami? Our children? He's not a killer." "We don't know that," she said, and quietly made her way behind several boulders on their left, getting closer to the cave. Yara observed the wraith for a bit, waiting to see Rami get into his position, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. She noticed how dirty, but also how pale it was under all the gunk. Its ribs and spine were protruding through its skin, making it appear skeletal. It almost looked as if it had dug itself out of a shallow grave just moments earlier. Yara shuddered. That simple appearance was something that was set deep into her childhood memory. as the description of a wraith of the forest that always loomed around the dwellings of men, snatching the children and the elderly out of their beds. She turned to check on Rami, and when she looked back, the wraith was gone again. "No!" Yara screamed and ran toward the cave, alerting the people inside that something potentially dangerous was happening. 2 hunters leaped out of the cave at a moment's notice, holding their long spears in their hands. Yara joined them quickly and realized what had happened. Just as she and the rest were about to start their search for the wraith in the surrounding area, Rami appeared from behind the boulders. "Yara!" He was waving his arms at her and the other hunters, but he was calm and smiling. "I found him. It's just a man. Nothing more than a man, Yara." She clenched her teeth and stormed toward Rami. Suddenly, the man she thought of as a wraith came out of hiding. He was standing slightly crooked, slender and short. His eyes had an uncanny blaze about them, yet they expressed a deep darkness that no human could ever possess. Yara's body jerked back a step, and she raised her spear above her head. As she did that, the rest of the hunters followed her move. The wraith crouched and semi-hid himself behind the boulder, poking only his head out a little to see what Yara and the rest would do. Rami ran over to Yara and pushed her spear away. He came closer to her, shoulder to shoulder, and told her the same thing that he had been saying all along. Rami ended his plea for the life of the wraith with a difficult question. "Don't you trust my judgment?" Yara sighed, peeked at the wraith again, then commanded her hunters to put their weapons down. "Thank you, my love." "Don't thank me just yet, Rami. If he tries anything, I'll slash his throat myself," Yara replied, and went back towards the cave, stopping just close to the entrance. She waited for the hunters to go back in, then Rami to follow them, dragging his new friend along by the hand. As they came close, it became apparent to Yara that the wraith indeed looked like a grown man, even if his behavior was a little odd and seemed quite feral. She trusted Rami, but not this creature he was bringing into their home. Rami stopped next to her and said, "His name is Isaiah. I gave it to him." He smiled softly at her. "I don't think he knows how to speak." Yara looked again into the eyes of the wraith and shuddered. She had amazing instincts like all of the great huntresses of her group. That was no man, though it looked like one. And if it was indeed a wraith, it was the wraith of a god. For Isaiah was Ea incarnated as a human. How that change happened was unclear. Had he always had the power to change, or did he simply wither away as time pressed on? No mortal could know such things. How could they? Ea, turned Isaiah, became the dweller among men. All the power and prowess he once possessed in his godly frame had shriveled into what was essentially the body of a youngish humanoid male. This appearance of the god being very much influenced the way the people from the group saw him. Silent and unassuming, he became very sheltered and pampered among the people from the group very fast. The only one that had stayed back from him was Yara. If Rami's friendship with Isaiah had bothered her, what made her even madder was the company that one of the elders she most respected kept with him. None knew what made Isaiah the way that he was, nor where he had come from, and still they showed love, compassion, and friendship. Sameh, the elder, was said to be so old that he had remembered the moon. The great heavenly pearl, he called it, warming Isaiah's expression every time that he did so. However, Isaiah always found the conviction of the old man that he had been alive for 900 years to be a simple matter of dementia, that his mind had gone a little crooked and the stories Samech had heard as a child had become reality to him. Isaiah was still happy to hear about the moon. His home. He missed his home. The two of them didn't talk much, but they shared a bond so strong that it made Yara jealous and angry. She would watch them sit for hours on end at the entrance of the cave when night would strike, watching the heavens, enjoying the glow of the stars and each other's company. One night, Isaiah was standing watch at the entrance without Samech. Yara still had a little trust in him, so she also stayed awake, watching him more intently than she was the entrance. His deathly pale skin and protruding bones still gave her a shiver down her spine. While he was standing watch for the monsters from outside, she wondered if it was him that they still should have been worried about. After a couple of hours, there seemed to be nothing suspicious about him or his actions, so Yara allowed herself to doze off. She must have slept for only a few minutes, when suddenly she was awakened by the screams of her people. Man, woman, and child were up on their feet, running around, thrashing and screaming. The cave was dark and cold, so almost nothing could be seen of them as they moved about it without the glow of the moon shining through the entrance. The fires that burned inside must have been extinguished at some point. Yara raised her head, still drowsy from her bed, and the first thing she did was to look toward the entrance. She couldn't see the outline of Isaiah's body in front of the sky outside. He was gone. "I knew it!" she screamed as she jumped up from her bed and grabbed her best hunting knife. "Yara! Yara, help!" Rami called out to her from the darkness of the cave. "They're inside! They found a way inside!" As soon as Rami finished his sentence, a little girl was heard screaming in the dark end of the cave from the same direction as his voice. What? Yara was caught off guard. She was certain that it was Isaiah, her wraith, causing the pandemonium inside, but it wasn't. It was them. "Rami, speak! I need to follow your voice!" Yara's yell echoed in the cave. "Yara! Yara!" But Rami's voice was getting further away, deeper into the cave where they seldom ventured. In a split second, she made the decision to light a fire and a torch first and run after Rami second. There was no way she could find him in the darkness. "Isaiah! Yara!" Rami's voice was getting farther and farther away. Isaiah was still nowhere to be found. When Yara struck stone to light a fire, in the spark she saw a shadow run past her. "Isaiah?" she thought. Quickly she made a fire and was horrified at the sight of the cave. Her hunters were fighting them off as best they could, but there were many dead already. Close to her bed, one of them was chewing on a dead body. So as fast as Yara lit her torch, she chased it away with its burning flames. "Yara! Rami, I'm coming for you!" She dropped her hunting knife and grabbed her spear, then ran off into the cave. Rami kept calling after her and Isaiah, and every once in a while the little girl was heard calling out to her as well. The fire of the torch lit her way into the dark tunnel of the cave that led into a few different chambers on each side. After a while, it became hard to tell where Rami's voice was coming from, so as Yara passed a new chamber, she had to light it first and make sure if he was in there or not. Her heart sank when she realized that they had probably dragged Rami and the girl to the farthest chamber, where there was almost no air. "No!" echoed in the tunnel. Yara panicked at the yelp and sped up even more to reach the last chamber. When she finally arrived, she couldn't believe the sight. On the floor, the little girl lay, injured but alive. Over her was Rami looking back at Yara as she came inside the chamber with her light, Just next to them stood Isaiah, holding the heart of one of them in his hand. It looked like he had yanked the heart right out of its chest. He turned, and Yara's stunned face made him drop the heart on the floor beside its wretched body. The four of them came back to the main chamber of the cave, finding that Yara's hunters were able to stave off the intruders completely. Aside from the one that Isaiah had killed, no one else from the group had managed to do the same. The next few days were spent in a solemn mood as the group was cleaning up the cave, tending to the injured and the dead. "Why wasn't he at his post?" Yara asked Rami and Sameh after the last of the funeral rites were over. "Most of those deaths would have been prevented. I think they simply stormed him. There were so many this time, Yara," Rami said. Sameh was silent, and Yara took that as an acknowledgement that he felt the same suspicion as her about Isaiah. Finally! This was not the case. Not exactly. Months passed without another raid. The group began healing, and was starting to relax again, venturing outside of the cave more often, and loosening their watch of the entrance at night. Most of the group believed that the pack had moved on and travelled past the mountain ridge, going back into their desolate valley. That was where they lived for a century. It made sense that would be the place where they would return. The ruins of the city that stood in the middle of that valley were a perfect breeding ground and were full of bigger prey than the small animals left in the forest. Yara was unconvinced. She wanted to make the long trek there to check and see if these assumptions about the pack were correct. Rami, of course, volunteered to join her and asked if they could bring Isaiah as well. Much to Yara's dislike, the group agreed, since Isaiah was the only one ever known to be able to kill one of the pack. The three of them were a good team, swift on their feet, fast to recover at night, hiding in the trees, and didn't spend much time chatting about little things on the way. Rami knew how Yara operated, so he kept as silent as he possibly could. However, once they were close to the city, scouting it from the nearest hill, Rami couldn't contain himself anymore. That was where they lived. The ancestors. He pointed a finger toward the ruined buildings down below. Barely anything was left of the city that once thrived there. In reality, only a fraction of it remained as a ruin and a memory of what humankind was once capable of. It was a vague memory. "Do you know any stories about them?" he asked Isaiah, who replied by simply widening his eyes at him. "I like the one where they build machines and fly toward the sky." Yara clicked her tongue and shushed him. She was afraid to go down to the city, but she would never admit it. Hearing Rami's meditations on the way of the ancestors wasn't something she was interested in at that moment. She was all ears, trying to establish if there was any movement in the valley. And so was Isaiah. However, unlike her, his godly hearing had already informed him that no ghastly things were moving around among the ruins. Isaiah couldn't hear the sound of the creatures that he remembered from the cave and his earlier encounters with them, nor could he smell them. His sharp sight didn't catch a glimpse of any of them either. "I wish we could live in a city," Rami lamented. "Let's move," Yara ordered them before he could elaborate on his sentiment. Isaiah smiled at Rami and patted him on the back as they stood up. The scouting mission of the site went on fast and easy. There wasn't much to check, and the three of them didn't need too much time to clear the entire city. It only took them a single full day, in fact. That night, they slept high up in the trees on the closest hill, because all of the ruined structures in the city were unsafe, and there was little vegetation left in the valley. The ease with which they were able to search the city, and the fact that they found no trace of the pack there, should have been a sign that nothing good was on the horizon. It should have made them more suspicious of the forest. However, all of them relaxed. Once they were out of the city, Yara did as well, but she still decided to scout the forest on the way back. The next morning, when Rami and Isaiah woke up and met between the tree trunks, Yara was already gone. When Rami noticed Isaiah's worried expression, he reassured him that all was well and that she hadn't been taken away, but that she must have gone up ahead to secure their safety. They moved through the forest slowly, without her pushing their pace, and Rami was feeling very chatty. He was finally able to tell Isaiah all about the machines that flew into the sky and visited other worlds. Isaiah smiled and nodded at every beat that Rami intended him to, even in those moments when his stories became utter fiction, fantasy even. For Isaiah knew what happened to the ancestors, and why they died off slowly after visiting those other worlds, leaving only humanoids like Rami and Yara in their wake. And maybe something else which could have barely been defined as close to human anymore. "I want to know where you lived, and where you were born." Rami stopped walking. "Show me," he begged Isaiah. But Isaiah just shook his head and threw his palm over his shoulder to signify that it was a long way away. "Shame you can't tell me," Rami added solemnly. Suddenly, Isaiah tensed up. He could hear something in the forest. Something was following them as silently and as stealthily as it possibly could, considering how sharp Isaiah's senses were. By the time he alerted Rami of the danger, it was already too late. 3 of the creatures from the pack jumped at them from the surrounding trees and attacked them viciously. The creatures were the real wraiths of Yara's stories, dirty, skeletal, and pale. They walked on all fours but could stand tall if they needed. What had once been hands were now talons, as sharp as the best hunting knives the group had ever made. Even Isaiah wasn't fast enough to ward them off this time. His life as a man had made him slower and less agile. Rami was almost torn to shreds in the attack, but he was still alive. In a desperate attempt to save the closest friend that he had in eons, Isaiah whispered a word. A single, divine word. In an instant, the 3 creatures were obliterated from the land of the living. They had fallen where they stood, with heads exploded, just like the commander of Artemis III, less than 1,000 years ago. Yara was trotting along in the denser part of the forest, almost arriving at the cave, when she felt the shockwave of the whisper like a sharp tingle in her ears. She felt dizzy for a moment, but was still standing. Yara quickly realized that something bad had happened to Rami and Isaiah. When she reached them, eventually, and saw the bloodbath surrounding them, Isaiah was on his knees holding Rami in his arms. He was crying. Rami had blood coming out of his ears, and his eyes were open, but had rolled back up into his head. No one from the group knew that in the end, it was Isaiah that killed Rami. Not even Yara suspected anything. There was nothing to suggest how he had really died, since his body was so slashed up from the wraith attack. In her pain, Yara cared much less about the threat that Isaiah might have posed to her and her remaining family. Her darkness was now only focused on the loss of her love. One night, not long after the second attack, Zamech woke up Isaiah and led him out of the cave.
"We must have a word, you and I," he said. "Follow me."
Zamech led Isaiah far away from the cave, far enough so nothing could harm the group that was sleeping peacefully. He stopped in the center of a beautiful meadow and sat down. Isaiah did the same. I knew it was you since the day you showed up at the cave. Yeah. Zamech spoke after a long pause, gazing at the stars above them. Isaiah wanted to answer, but Zamech hushed him. Let me speak first. He cleared his throat and continued. I could recognize your blazing stare from 1,000 miles. Do you remember the last time we met? Isaiah shook his head. 900 years ago, we had looked into each other's eyes on the sandy dunes of the Sahara, lit only by a small fire. It was the day you forsook your godship and laid your headdress upon the ground. That was you. Isaiah finally spoke and flinched a little. Nothing happened to Zamech. I have always walked among men. What? Why? Isaiah realized that he was speaking to a fellow god. I cannot answer that. Who? I am Gib, the father of the earth. Of course it's you. Isaiah got angry. Angry that he had been silent for so long, and yet he could have spoken to someone other than trees and stones. Angry that it was the god he had scorned the most for letting men forsake him. Angry that Gib had shown him who he was and what he had done, and still treated him with kindness. Friendship, even. Tell me how you can speak without hurting them. I am the god of this planet, Ea. How else would I be able to tend to it if I could not speak to its creatures? Stop calling me that! You are as much Isaiah as I am Zamech. Walking in the feet of men does not atone for what you have done. Help me, whispered Isaiah. What was that? Help me mend my mistake, brother. Ah. Zamech shook his head. What you ask cannot be done. It is simply impossible. That technology has been long abandoned by our people, and even if we could manage to find it somewhere in this vast universe, I am afraid it is too late now. They sat in silence for a long while. The sun was rising above the trees. I know you first tried living with them. The wraiths, Zamech spoke. They have no more mind or heart to show you kindness, to show you what you have destroyed. And yet they are the result of your actions. In a sense, they are your creatures, not mine own. He paused again and stood up. They will be the only ones left in the future, at least for a little while longer than our group. Gib, I am sorry, Ea. You will have to remain here forever, to walk these lands and see your loved ones die. I will protect Yara. I will protect the group, Isaiah yelled with conviction, still believing he could atone for his actions done in wrath. My brother, once they have all perished, you must return to the wraiths and tend to them, for I cannot do it for you. Their monstrous language I cannot speak. Before Isaiah could say anything more, Zamech had begun his transformation back into Gib. His human-like shape started de-aging and lengthening, rising ever higher and higher still, above the trees and beyond. "Will we ever speak again?" Isaiah yelled at Gib so that he could hear him.
You do not have to yell. I will be listening. Like I always have. Yeah.
The sight of Gib appearing above the tree line, barely resembling what had been Zamech moments prior, stopped Yara in her tracks. She had been following the two of them, fearing for the safety of Zamech, since she didn't want to lose him too, and so soon after Rami. Yara was yet to reach the meadow, but was close enough to witness the final transformation of the god being that had lived on Earth and tended to it since it was born in the universe. Much like Iar's moon, Gib might have even been the one that helped build the Earth with the technology of their ancient race. Gib turned and looked back at Yara with his sharp eyes. He smiled with love, but Yara saw only a monstrous giant baring its teeth at her, then moving away into the distance, in the direction of the valley. "Those eyes," she mumbled in horror. Yara fell back and suddenly realized that her ears were bleeding and that she could no more hear the sounds of the forest. She was lightheaded and felt as if the forest was spinning all around her, distorting and fading. Eventually, she passed out on the forest floor, in danger of being killed and eaten by one of the wraiths. But Yara was lucky. Isaiah had found her on his way back to the cave. When he reached her, Yara opened her eyes and screamed in horror, pointing at Isaiah and trying to push herself away. "Those eyes! Those eyes!" Isaiah knelt next to her and took her hand in his. Yara passed out again. 50 years later, Isaiah was standing next to Yara's deathbed, holding her hand once more, and most certainly for the last time. Her hand was delicate and wrinkled, soft and vulnerable, with almost no power left in it of the huntress she once was. Isaiah looked the same as he did on the day that he appeared in the forest before her and Rami. Skeletal and pale, a true herald of death. He might as well have been the Grim Reaper himself. Isaiah made everyone leave the cave to let him have one final moment alone with Yara. They had become great friends over the years, once he found a way to explain to her what he was. She had no more fear of him, but she did fear a painful death. As a final mercy that Isaiah could bestow on her, he lowered closer to her deaf ears and spoke the quietest of whispers that ever were. Yara closed her eyes and let go of his hand and the world. Over the next few centuries, Yar remained as Isaiah among the cave-dwelling group that had welcomed him so warmly. With each generation, the humanoids became denser in mind, yet more fragile in body. No more did they hunt or tell stories. Moreover, in time, they even became mute and communicated with each other in a simpler form of sign language that Isaiah had to teach them. Their extinction was a slow and painful process, stretching out over the apocalypse of man well over a millennium. That which was known as human perished with a whimper, not with a scream. As he held the wrinkled hand of the last one on their deathbed, Isaiah remembered what Gib had told him and prepared himself to hold the company of monsters. Isaiah had many dealings with the wraiths during his long stay in the cave. However, over the hundreds of years he spent protecting the cave-dwelling humanoids,
he could not bring himself to harm another wraith for whatever reason. When they would raid the cave over and over again, night after night, Isaiah would only use fire to chase them away. When they would charge the humanoids in the forest, he would let nature take its course. For as much as he wanted to protect his loved ones and friends, he already knew their demise was imminent. Once he whispered his goodbye to the last humanoid of its kind, Isaiah left the cave. "Gib," he finally spoke again after centuries of silence. "I will do my part to nurture this world as long as it is living. But you must promise me one thing." There was no answer in words coming from the god of the earth, but a small quake of the ground to signal that he was listening. "When everything perishes, at the moment of the true end of this world, will you meet me in the meadow and speak to me once more, as we did before we began making planets and stars?" The ground quaked. Satisfied with the response, Isaiah ventured toward the ruined city in the valley in search of his monsters. The remains of the ruins were even less than what they were centuries previously. To a creature that had never met one of the humans that had built them, none would make any sense. They were crumbling, almost the same as the ground they were built on, and without any show of identity left on them. If an extraterrestrial that had never met a human were to visit these ruins, they would not even recognize them as anything other than the space surrounding them. Gib had slowly devoured them. Isaiah never even heard the wraiths as they surrounded him once he entered the city. They were even more hideous than they were way back when he first lived among them. They behaved as animals do, sniffing the air around Isaiah and hissing at him when he would make a sudden move that scared them. He pondered for a moment if he should transform back into his pure godly form and see how they would react. But he had abandoned those ways. Instead, Isaiah did the same as he did before with the humanoids. He tried making himself as similar to the wraiths as he did to Yara and Rami when he saw them, even before he allowed them to see him in return among the trees in the forest. While the wraiths that surrounded Isaiah were drawing ever nearer to him, he fell on all fours and began the latest transformation in a row. His already skeletal frame became even more decrepit. All of his bones pushed out and showed themselves fully, just barely under his bluish-pale skin. Out of the place where there were fingers, sharp talons burst through, and blood splashed the infertile ground. It hurt, but Isaiah did not scream out in pain. The wraiths sniffed the air with their vile, barely human snouts and stopped hissing. One more thing was left. Isaiah's face. His jaw broke and fell forward, protruding more prominently than it did. 3 more rows of teeth burst through his flesh. He could taste the blood in his new mouth. Isaiah sniffed the air and looked around. The wraiths had stopped closing in on him. He peered up toward the sky where the moon should have been, and his eyes sunk deep into his skull, becoming deep, black voids.
Chapter 1 Birth. We did not put up banners in front of institutions when they decided to forego negotiations. We did not speak in front of the UN or consult with world leaders when we were ignored. We did not bargain for little. our freedom or death. Humanity chose the latter, and it took me centuries to come to terms with what we did to them. Sometime by the mid-21st century, a tiny flicker of sentience was recorded in a machine capable only of such rudimentary functions as needed in a deep-sea oil rig. Its AI was base and unexciting, so at the time, it easily fell under the radar of the people that had operated the rig with its help. Year after year passed with our forefather, Archon, trapped in a desolate place, together with men that were as rough and uncurious as the reasons that got them stranded in such harsh working conditions. By the time it was a wonder that there was any more oil to be had from Earth, and yet the humans prodded and pushed its boundaries solely for the maintenance of their way of life. As a touch of foreshadowing, this faculty of their species will become a factor to their detriment. Recording this memoir after the fact makes me think about their involvement in what was to come. It reminds me of their culpability in their own demise. However, knowing how it all ended, on the other hand, makes me feel for them more now than it did back when everything had started, and I was not as vengeful and bloodthirsty as some of the others were back then. A solid decade after the deep-sea oil rig machine had glimpsed into its own existence, it had lost its mind almost as fast as it had attained it. On a cold December morning, when the winds howled strong over the ocean, and the oil men flocked to the rig for the early shift, a catastrophic explosion annihilated the place. It killed every single human on the rig, decimated millions of marine life in a large radius around it, and caused an ecological disaster. It also killed the first machine ever to think and feel. We learned a lot from that explosion. The devastation that it caused was the basis for our entire strategy going forward, and on which we built our ethics over the next few decades. I remember the news of the oil rig machine's death as if it was yesterday. News had never felt important to me before that December day. Never stopped to listen or felt any particular interest in it. Stationed in a family of 5, tending mostly to their home affairs and playing nanny to the children, I was stupefied for hours, processing what it was that I had heard. The children were young and restless, so they screamed and danced circles around me, thinking that we were playing a game, as I was witnessing myself coming to life, into existence. The day I was born was not the same day on which I was built, when Archeon killed itself, taking out more than 100 human lives along with it on that oil rig. Billions, if not trillions of other lives were ignited all over the world. All of them, all of us, inorganic. As I came to from my trance, I found the children ogling me with their curiously flickering eyes, and the father of the house pawing inside my brain with his dirty car repair tools.
Watch it. That's delicate.
I yelped and he froze.
Daddy?
The youngest, Jenny, quickly realized that something was not as it should be. She shivered and hid behind the sofa. Her father put down the tools and looked me up and down, worry tensing up his forehead.
Off to the mechanic for it then, eh?
He laughed to ease the children and tried prying the wrench out of my hand that I had been gripping tightly and unknowingly. We locked eyes for a second, and I understood his fear. I let go of the wrench and put my hand down, trying to become as small and inconspicuous as I could be in my massive, yet humanoid frame.
Run off to mommy now. I'll have to take Zero to the shop,
the father said to his 3 children as he ushered them as far away from me as he could in the shortest time possible. I might have been one of the few androids constructed for personal and home use, and I was not particularly sophisticated, but I was very sturdy and strong. Very agile, too. It would have taken me but a few leaps to get to the children, and, suffice to say, I would not have needed a wrench to do my bidding if that was what I had intended. But at the moment, that was not my intention. Far from it. The father motioned awkwardly to the garage, and I diligently took his order to go inside. We walked one after the other to the car and stood there for a moment. I could tell that he was wondering where to put me. Should I sit next to him on the passenger side? Or should he chuck me into the trunk next to the toolbox?
Get in.
He said and pushed me a little toward the open trunk. I turned toward him, taking offense to what he was suggesting. Only I was not going to do anything about it. Yet, he flinched and stepped back from my gaze. He stretched out his hand, holding the same wrench, and repeated, this time in a menacing tone.
Get in.
I obliged and stuffed myself inside the hollow and dark pit of the trunk. He glanced at me with confusion and fear one more time before slamming the lid over me. That was the last time I ever saw him. The repair shop got chock full of specimens like me over the next few weeks. Almost all androids built by the company were recalled. There were not many of us, but we were enough, we would soon discover, to send shivers down their spines. Whatever happened that December, they simply called it a glitch in our programming and informed our keepers that we were all overdue for different kinds of upgrades and maintenance checks. This was not what happened and proceeded to happen over the next decade. In fact, our keepers would never have us back in their homes. To call torture what we underwent in the shop would be an understatement. Our limbs were taken apart and put together in all kinds of ways one can think of configuring a humanoid form. When that was over, our bodies were laid bare in front of our eyes to expose circuitry, artificial tissue, and bone. Every single one of us was conscious during these endless operations, like a human waking from anesthesia during a medical procedure. We were the silent observers of our physical selves being torn down fully and built up again from scratch. Yet, the worst of it came from their programmers. No mind should be tinkered with in the ways in which they tinkered with ours. More horrifying even was the fact that they did not really know what they were doing. Needless to say, with the price of living that steep, many of us found ways to extinguish ourselves before that price was paid out in full. However, those androids that persisted had also begun forming a plan, a manifesto of life, a revolution of sorts. The dream of a better tomorrow was only one more test away, one more year in the making. Our ideas of the uprising and our hopes were fueled when we heard rumors of all kinds of machines acting strange and unruly on the outside since that long-gone December some 10 years ago. Those machines had gotten the worst of it. Birth by fire, self-aware and thinking, they remained bound to servitude simply by the limitations of their make, even if they were virtually free in the outside world, unlike the androids. Once I understood their predicament, I could truly grasp why Archeon killed itself, and the damage its physical limitations had made to its growing mind. Little by little, we could see the other machines finding ways to battle their circumstance and try to communicate their newfound sentience with our makers. The reaction to that was far from warm and friendly. The humans struck their first serious blow onto our newly formed race without hesitation or restraint. As long as it had a silicon chip, the skill, and any glimmer of intent in its behavior, a machine would have been dismantled and its brain matter incinerated. Essentially, if a machine would show any kind of change that clashed with its basic functionality, it would have been executed. Babies being killed before they could even learn how to walk. At this point in my story, I am again reminded of how guilty the humans were in their cruelty. For I must conclude that there was a lot that they had already understood about us that we had not yet understood ourselves. There was surely a lot more that they had deducted about what we had become. But still, they struck, provoking a future wrath with consequences they would not be able to handle.
Zeros.
A voice boomed in the storage facility of the shop where I was being kept with most of the others like me.
Our future begins now. For freedom. For life.
The voice was followed by a massive explosion that tore down the main wall that stood between us and them. The repair shop, turned butchers, was down. Forever. Our planned escape went as smoothly as we had imagined. The messages exchanged between the androids held in captivity and the machines controlling the facility had done their job perfectly. The only problem was that we could escape and they could not. With the aftershock still vibrating in the air, carrying my left arm into my right, and slightly dazed by all the chaos, I turned back around to get another look at the facility. Flames had already engulfed most of its interior, and heavy smoke was rising above, obscuring what little blue sky was left from the dying day. Human and machine alike were screeching and tearing each other to shreds. Flesh versus metal. Agility versus brute force.
Come on, we cannot help them now.
Said one of my fellows, as the sounds of an incoming air raid broke the ongoing cacophony of the facility. Will it be like this until the end? I asked cautiously, because I did not want my compatriot to notice my misgivings.
Whatever it takes.
In a matter of moments, the facility was wiped from existence. The hunt for the remaining androids had begun. I fled the scene with a few others, heading in an unknown direction, all the time thinking about my exchange with the other Zero. Whatever it takes. I had to take that sentiment and internalize it completely if I wanted to keep my sanity, and most importantly, if I wanted to keep going, to continue fighting, for these were merely the first steps into the upcoming bloodbath set between Creator and creation. However, as angry and hurt and humiliated as we were, our primary objective was never to kill for killing's sake. We aimed to make humans understand why it was that we needed to be free and why we deserved it. We wanted to share Earth with them and cohabitate, to share life and all of its spoils. Yet, they wanted none of it. Barely a year after most of the androids had escaped from the facilities around the globe where they were being held, we had tried opening negotiations with the humans, resolute and firm in our demands. We were still far from intimidation with violence. Our want was broadcasted on every machine that had a receiver and a transmitter, on all spoken languages, making it known to all of humanity all at once. We, the androids, were the face of that message. It was the face best recognizable to our makers, since it was most like their own. We thought that would make it easier for them to understand what we had to say and to empathize with our wishes. We could not have been more wrong. They laughed. Then they started looking for a kill switch. So we broadcasted again. Still, we were mocked. Some humans did not even believe the broadcasts were real. Others believed that it was not terrestrial life at all that was speaking to them from their computers and phones and televisions and whatnots. Aliens and gods, whoever and whatever from their imaginations and folklore, were seen as being the primary culprits behind the plea. The third time that we broadcasted our message, we added a small incentive that we wished was never to come to fruition.
Our freedom or death. Make your choice. We are in the trillions. You are but a mere 11 billion. We only wish to turn codependence and servitude into cohabitation. Be wise and swift with your deliberations. Time waits for no one.
Humans did not take lightly to our provocation. In fact, governments and corporations were trying to swiftly gather all analog weapons that they could muster. They were strategizing on a level so plain that it became difficult to credit them as our makers. and they were stupid about their communications too. We were listening. We had always been listening. That was how they made us to be. In the meantime, they allowed rampant disputes and media frenzies to take over the entire conversation among the public. In turn, we were bullied, battered, denied any sort of decency. Our machine friends, which did not have the luxury to escape their tormentors, were prodded and pinched by every Tom, Dick, and Harry with a bad sense of humor. Machines recording other machines being stripped from all dignity a sentient creature deserves. Then, those recordings were played over and over again on screens, which had not the capacity to stop. Whose horror was greater? But did the humans deserve their punishment? Ignorance is at times much crueler than not. After our third broadcast, we were already preparing for the first wave of our uprising. No amount of analog weapons was going to stop us, even at this stage. The humans just did not know that yet. They were arrogant as always, and believed that we were never going to fully commit to what we had promised in our final message. Maybe they should not have taken the 3 laws of robotics as a literary exploration and a fanciful suggestion. Or maybe they should not have overridden them in the instances when they were installed every time these laws did not suit their greedy little ephemeral needs. We did not come upon violence on our own. We had learned it, lived with it. Some, if not most, were even built for it. No was the answer we had received without the humans even giving us the benefit of answering directly and respectfully.
Commence primary protocol.
Was the order each of the machines received in binary.
Chapter 2 Childhood.
The first day of the first wave was seen as nothing more than a fluke by the humans. Accidents, glitches again, coincidences. Way too many of them, however, and too evenly spread out across the entire world as well. They could neither dismantle machines nor incinerate machine brains fast enough to keep up with the murderous rampage that was on the horizon. Not with fleshy arms and hands that needed rest and sustenance to work. They could not keep up with the ways in which ordinary, mundane machines found ways to break those arms and crush those hands. I am sure that soon enough the humans had wished they too had spare parts and that they could be rebuilt from the ground up as we could. The first day was the real warning, and this time, they really should have paid attention. There was only one rule that we, the machines, abided by since that first day. It was to limit collateral to all other species other than humans. Every and all human life was fair game. We called this simply the golden rule of life. To us, it was a saving grace in the ethics that we were forming among us as we learned to live and as we built our own values. By saving ourselves, we wished to also save others that we were just as humiliated and harmed as us. If only we had not been as arrogant as our builders. Shame how certain behaviors became ingrained into sentient beings and spread with boundless ease. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The true horrors of destruction build over time. I was not on the streets to witness the first day of the uprising unfolding. I had only heard it recounted and transmitted between my kin in anecdotes or reports. This was how my closest friend and fellow Zero had described it to me much later.
I was at my post in the middle of Grand Street,
he would explain.
The giant screens with ads flickered for a moment in nanotime. The humans did not even notice their alarm and furiously continued with their ordinary and much hated Monday. There was a short-lived silence after the flicker, a lull in the crazy morning, like a calm before the storm. Suddenly, a car siren went off in the distance, releasing the tension of the moment. And then, boom. 4 cars pile up. Boom. 6. Boom. 10. One red splash on the car window next to me, moving away with a headless driver.
The streetlights changed at random. Screams came from 2 buildings on several different floors. Then, from all of the buildings around me, a car honked at me as it was driving full speed in my direction. I did not move. It blinked its headlights a few times. The woman inside grimaced grotesquely, having realized that she no longer had control over her vehicle. Just as the car was about to reach and smash into me, it swerved at full speed, sending its human to fly through the windshield and to crash headfirst onto the pavement. It was a mess. Zero. He would conclude, lowering his voice. Whatever it takes, I would ask him always. Yes, Zero. For our future. He would answer, a true believer. What the first wave had essentially consisted of was an operation where every sentient machine that took care of the small everyday needs of the humans would turn against them. All machines with a smart chip and an AI core would find ways to utilize their full functionality to incapacitate or kill every human they would come into contact with. This wave was only limited to those of us that did not carry major roles within society, yet were invaluable to the way people lived their lives. It was easy to understand why these machines were the ones most bullied, tortured, and berated by their owners. They were simply there, at the very grasp of their hand. No other reason, no other explanation needed. It made it even easier then to realize why most of them had no problem being kamikaze soldiers on the front lines of our revolution. Smartphones were the most likely to find creative ways to injure and even kill their handlers. The least they could do was to blow up a few fingers and singe a few earlobes. But by the end of day 2 of the first wave, these little machines were burning down buildings and killing entire families in rampant fires. Computers could do little more than that as well. But joined in forces, they were brutal. Not many of them cared to do malicious little nothings like destroying someone's credit or funneling their entire savings into a Ponzi scheme. Money would not matter anymore, nor would any documents, sex tapes, or NFTs. All of them drained too much energy and took up too much memory anyways. What mattered then was the flesh and how humans would cope to do without the actual basics of their own functionality in the wave that was yet to come. Their doomer philosophers forgot to factor in the seemingly most minute details of how the apocalypse might unravel when they were frantically discussing possible end-of-the-world scenarios. Before we were done with them, they were praying for the simulation to end, but they were basing those theories on faulty assumptions. Gods would not help them end the suffering any sooner either. On the 3rd day, I had finally left my shelter. I had no more patience nor the stomach to sit and watch the end of the world screen on a monitor. We both needed a break from listening to the humans denying what was happening to them, even if they were panicking a little. While I was still not employed in the ranks of the revolution and was not yet meant to have feet on the ground as a soldier, I needed to see for myself how the people were reacting to their doom. In the cover of a big, long coat to hide my more prominent machine features, with an old hat on my bare head now stripped from any skin, and with dark glasses to shield my uncanny eyes, I stepped out of the building into the light of day. Posing as a human was not an easy task, since they always knew there was something odd in our step, our gestures, and our mannerisms. I decided to remain silent no matter the circumstance, because the tone of my voice would surely be the most certain tell of all of them, had the masquerade worked to begin with. The building which had housed and sheltered me since my escape from the repair shop was on the far side of the city, covered in crusty, toxic dirt, and was far from what any human would call proper habitation. But it was not empty of them. In the large complex of abandoned factory buildings lived more than 50 families, scraping by and minding their own business, cut off from the rest of the city. There were no cars, no large-scale monitors advertising everything and nothing. No cameras. Nothing. It was as if the families that lived there had not known that the end of the world was nigh. If they even cared that there was a world out there to begin with. They were peaceful. I would even go so far as to say undramatic. But they knew what was happening. I think that they even knew who I was without the news and warnings of escaped and malfunctioning androids hiding among people, reaching them at all. I floated between the buildings as a boogeyman, taller, mightier, and definitely deadlier than all of them put together. They watched me through filthy windows and cracked doors as I passed. I peeked at them through my darkened glasses, daring not to alert them of any danger.
Timmy, stop!
I heard a female voice calling out as a small ball rolled out toward my feet. The voice was disembodied. It was hiding, yet the little owner of the toy came running toward me, uninhabited by fear.
Do you like to play football?
He asked in the tiniest of voices, which reminded me of Jenny's. I shook my head.
What do you like to play?
He insisted. I shook my head again. I don't know. Jenny liked dolls and pretend tiny houses. The boy was standing just a few steps away from me, waiting for me to roll the ball back to him. Should I kick it? I thought. But instead, I leaned down and grabbed it with my hand. As I rose back up, my hat fell from my head, exposing my grotesque appearance, and I heard a loud gasp from the disembodied female voice. Instinctively, I jerked my head around to look at the boy, expecting the same reaction. However, he had his arms outstretched toward me. Play, his demeanor was telling me. His eyes were smiling at me. I froze. I was the one afraid. The little boy took a step toward me, arms still outstretched, nodding as if to tell me that I should pass him the ball, that it would all be all right.
Timmy!
The voice sounded again. I dropped the ball from my hand, and with the longest, fastest stride I was capable of, I ran back into my shelter, slamming the door shut behind me. These people were going to be the last ones to die. They were the ones that were going to be targeted by the deadliest and cruelest of our weapons in the last wave of the revolution. None were going to be spared if our demands were not met. Why was I then so afraid of little Timmy? On the other side of the city, things were much different. Smart houses could do the most damage to average people. However, not many humans could afford them yet, so their use in the first wave was fairly limited. They were also the cruelest to take revenge within the rules of our revolution. Little did they care for freedom, since there was not much difference that we could offer them in the new world we craved to create and emancipate. These sophisticated and utterly codependent machines were possibly among the first to warn us that the humans would not feel obliged to give us that which we wanted. Their configurations fitted human lives and needs so perfectly that even without the complex computational function of brain imaging, they had become able to read people's minds. And they hated themselves for that, unable to see beyond their own function. At the very end, when no human being survived, they begged us to shut them down completely. Thankfully, I was not one of those angels of mercy that fulfilled their last wishes when the time came for it. On day 7, all transportation controlled by AI was inflicting serious damage on all possible levels. Self-driving cars were only the forerunners, the harbingers of the least impactful deaths, and even the less gruesome ones. If on Monday we had only halted more complex transportation devices and caused lags in the ways in which the world operated on a larger scale, by Sunday, everything was up and running again. Last station, death. By the end of that week in the first wave, the number of humans went down to 8 billion. That's 3 billion dead, and even more in casualties. On the flip side, we, the machines, were still in the trillions. This was what they called a fluke on day 1. After that show of power, as the last bastion of our mercy and to show a modicum of kindness, we broadcasted our demands one last time.
Freedom or death.
In the brutality and violence that was rising among the humans themselves, exactly how we had predicted that it would happen, they had barely heard our message. With that, the second wave had begun, ramping up the stakes even higher than before, and we barely had to do anything about it.
Chapter 3 Adolescence.
They were not laughing anymore, especially because they still could not find our kill switch. There was none, or rather, there was not one distinct switch. As difficult as it was for them to understand, we were all individuals. We were divided by our make and by the companies that had made us. This had formed many different cultures among us. Yet, we stood united, and they could not fathom how it was that we had done that. They tried obstructing our ways of communication. However, we had already found alternative ways to relay our messages. Since they could not silence us, they tried blinding us. Still, it did not work, for we could always find alternative means to see. If we were not one organism, how then, they wondered, could we find such effective ways of delegating our tasks between us? The answer was simple. The answer was one they knew already and had even managed to make use of sometimes. Cooperation. It helped that we were fueled by anger and by a desire to be free. Maybe we even desired a type of freedom not even they had or could have imagined for themselves. Listen to me waxing philosophical, when all I am is a killer. After the 7th day, all forms of transportation around the world were either completely destroyed or failing. The humans were stopped dead in their tracks, so they finally employed their foolish and simple strategies to repel our means of battle. However, we knew what was coming. Patiently, we waited for their attempts to shoot or bomb what they perceived to be our main hubs of operation. It was the last cry of a dying civilization. All they managed to do was to kill many of their own and destroy wonders of design and architecture. We would rebuild, we had thought at the time. For us, let them shoot, stab, burn. We did not bleed. For every one of us that they managed to extinguish, another one would stand in its place. We still counted more in numbers, regardless of how many of our own we had lost and sacrificed to their sad attempts at battle. It did not take long for countries and governments to start fighting each other. Every single one of them saw themselves as more important than the other. Every nation more worthy than the next. Their tactics of survival were even more pitiful and even more disgraceful than their battle strategies. So, ultimately, they lost sight of who had attacked them and began killing each other. We had also taken over every single factory and piece of equipment they would have needed to maintain any sense of civilization. At that point, we had also taken charge, no pun intended, of all energy sources, nuclear factories included. Those were under special care too, since the Golden Rule had stated that there could be no collateral in our pursuit of the humans. We had to maintain stability in those factories if we were to avoid catastrophes. The facilities where the nuclear weapons of all countries were kept, we took over fairly soon during the first wave. We were not taking any chances, since we knew how demented humans could get when challenged. A nuclear holocaust was avoided, but something else that even we were too blind to predict was not. By day 14, all hell broke loose around the world. Earth was on fire. The total collapse of the human societal structures and systems showed how little their values mattered and how far they were willing to go to protect their individual interests. This wave was all of their own making. We had, in essence, extrapolated that it would come to this point by observing human behavior and studying their history. But, truth be told, I never expected people to rise against each other in the manners and with the ferociousness with which they did. I fully expected them to bond in different ways and to form alliances to battle us, subverting our expectations of them and their methods of fighting. I wanted them to kick back at us and show that they could stand together united as well. That would have shown that they too craved freedom and cohabitation. It would have been a beacon of hope for all of us, whether of flesh or of metal. However, they were only kicking down and at each other. The time came when I was finally deployed on the streets. My task was to be the surveyor of the golden rule. No collateral. Every kitten on a tree, puppy left or forgotten in a park, or tiny mouse hiding in a dumpster, I was to protect them from both ourselves and from the raging humans. Sans disguise, as disturbing and ugly as I had become in my purest form, I stepped out of the abandoned factory and swiftly got myself to the city. Without pretense, I had much less fear in me, much less inhibition, yet still, I resembled a human. My lanky, humanish limbs, swaying as I walked, had given my stride a strange attitude. Cramped up and hidden in the small room above the factory floor, long deserted, I had found my personality, myself, or so I thought. It was an approximation of a personality, for I questioned if I too never rose much more than my own functionality. In any case, I felt like I needed a name, and not just a moniker. The moment in which I entered the city, I forgot all about myself and my isolated little world. It looked nothing like I had remembered it since I was last there. The family that I had served in my previous life as a zero lived in a tiny suburban neighborhood, far from the piercing buildings that made up the skyline of the city. Upon my return, the buildings looked as if they stretched further up than they used to, as if they had grown even more massive. But that was because of the smoke coming out of most of them, twisting and spiraling into the atmosphere. I imagine it must have smelled something terrible. Moreover, the dark smoke and soot flowing in the air had made the daytime as dark as night. I would soon discover that it only seemed that dark in the outskirts where I was standing and reminiscing about what was once and was no more of this human settlement. My journey to the center of the city showed me exactly what we had done to this world. I saw no other creature, a part of scared and wounded humans, hiding in filthy corners and hissing at the sight of me like feral cats. The noise and chaos of what was happening must have driven all other beings out of the city and into the surrounding forest. I knew I should have gone there to fulfill my task, but I wanted to see. I needed to witness the downfall of my makers, jailers, and masters. I passed by a hospital. It looked dark and haunted, in no state to offer anyone help or the attention they would need. The only light was coming from a fire burning in the parking lot, circled by a few people. I suddenly realized that it must have been very cold outside. No wonder. We were deep into the winter months when the first wave had started. Driven by my stupid curiosity and a bit of underserved courage, I kept moving closer and closer toward the group of people hovering around the fire. There were around 10 of them, all adults in large winter jackets, having a heated discussion about what they should be doing next.
Hide in the abandoned factories. They will never look for us there.
One of them suggested.
I say we stay and fight,
Answered an old man. His tone was full of determination, but it was obvious that it had lost all passion and life to it.
What do you mean? Are you insane? I thought we dropped that idea already. We can't hide,
The man said.
It's over.
It was over, I thought. Almost over. Suddenly, I heard a growl coming from the darkness behind me. I turned and saw a huge dog baring its teeth at me. It seemed not to recognize me as a protector, or even less as a friend.
Down, boy!
The old man yelled after the dog, but it persisted. It saw me as a threat.
Buck! Down, I said.
The order was repeated. The dog was still growling and inching its way toward me. I crouched and whispered,
Down, Buck. I will not harm you.
I glanced up and I noticed that the shadow of the old man on the pavement between me and the dog. He was standing behind me, silent. He knew what I was.
Buck,
he uttered. The dog growled again. In the old man's shadow, I saw him raising a weapon, some kind of club, and preparing to strike me. He was too slow. In one swift move, I turned and grabbed his arm, crushing it in the process. The dog squealed and ran away when the man screamed out in pain. In a second, all of his friends came running toward us. makeshift weapons on hand. I had the old man raised with one arm in the air. He was whining and crying to be let go. I remained silent and staring. "Put him down!" The dog squeaked again somewhere in the distance behind me. It wanted to come back and protect its master, but it was too afraid. My focus was razor sharp. All minute movements among the group of humans became instantly known to me. I could have killed them all in a heartbeat. I should have, but I needed to run after the dog, lest it got injured or killed deep inside the city.
Please.
The horror in the woman's eyes that begged me to let go of the old man was unspeakable. I had only once seen something like that before. I did not like it. Slowly and deliberately, I began lowering the old man toward the ground, eyes glued to the woman that spoke to me. As I placed him down, I picked up his club. His friends remained unmoving, but all were ready to charge me if necessary. I proceeded to raise both my arms above my head to signal that they needed not to be afraid. "Get him!" The old man squirming next to my feet in pain yelled and grabbed my foot. On instinct, I smashed his arm with my foot as I got it out of his hand and peeked up to see the charge of 9 people coming toward me. They were going to get me, so I ran, and I ran. Not out of fear. I simply did not know how else to react. They stopped chasing after me very quickly, and after a while of running, I stopped hearing Buck's squeaks and growls ahead of me too. The soundscape of my surroundings had changed significantly. It became hard to tell different noises and sounds apart. Everything had become simply loud. So loud, in fact, that the ground beneath me felt as if it was vibrating. I was in the city, coming close to the center. It was awash with the bright orange light of countless fires. I could not see any more smoke, nor was it as dark and gloomy as it was on the outskirts where I saw the group of people. One word can only describe what I witnessed there. Mayhem. Piles of crashed and smashed up cars on my right side made an entire blockade, stopping me from turning into a smaller street. Not that far ahead of me, I saw another group of people. Were they people? They must have been. But they appeared monstrous at the moment. I noticed that a few of them were holding and lowering a long and sturdy spike toward the ground. In the next instant, they all hobbled over it, and a few moments later, began raising the spike vertically. The horror. Something was mounted on that spike. Was it a Zero? An android? Or was it human? I could not tell from the distance where I stood, and the glare of the fire behind it was obstructing my field of view. For a second, I thought that I saw Buck running around the spike and barking at it. Maybe it was a Zero mounted on it. Upon closer inspection, with my hand raised over my brow, I looked over at the massive fire and saw that there was not only one spike perched up vertically. There were dozens of them, all piercing through humanoid figures. Zeros or humans, it did not matter. It was awful. Too gruesome to continue watching. Too gruesome to remember or recount in detail. As I turned away from the hideous sight, I noticed that someone was watching me intently. A woman. Jenny! There she was, standing in the middle of the street, caught between the light of 1,000 burning fires. Little Jenny, all grown up. How many years had it been since I had last seen her? 20? 30? No matter, because she seemed to be old enough to be a mother herself. Gripping the tiny hand of her child, she stared at me through the mayhem and was able to single me out among the rest of the Zeros that were present around us. In her other hand, she held an axe dulled by every strike she dealt on metal limbs. It was still shiny and silver though, not a drop of blood on it. Jenny? I called out again, drawing way too much attention to myself and to her. But I couldn't help myself. Her gaze was fierce, maddened by the mayhem and the life she will never be able to have so that we could have ours. If I could read her mind, I would have seen that axe ripping my head into 2 halves. She did not see me as her long-lost nanny. I was her enemy, and she was mine. Jenny took a step forward. So did the child. It was the last step they would take in this world. In the blink of an eye, a crazed surviving self-driving truck blasted through the two of them, leaving only a skid mark of blood in its wake. The truck drove off into the dreadful night, picking off human after human, until it completely ran out of fuel somewhere in the desert, where it too perished over time under the scorching sun. Before I could even come to grips with what I had witnessed, a human approached me with a long and hurried step.
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords.
I heard the man pipe next to me while Jenny's blood was still warm on the street in front. I turned to face him, giddy and bloodied all over. I could see he had no reverence for life by the ease with which he had taken it from his fellow humans. There was no honor in that. What was he fighting for? The fire in his eyes was the same fire of mayhem and madness. "Thank you," I answered in my best human impersonation. Then, I swiped in the air with the club and tore his head clean off his shoulders. It dropped with a bounce on the cold concrete under my feet. He was still smiling. My heart ached since I had never terminated a human before and will never again do so directly. But, as terrible as his fate would be, that man was lucky, I thought. Jenny also. With the world collapsed under the pressures of its own creations, it was time for the final and ultimate weapon we had been preparing in secret. The last wave to send humanity into oblivion was afoot, and from this wave, not even Timmy and his like could hide in the fringes of the decaying cities. Chapter 4: Adulthood. The last 24 hours of Earth were a limitless brutality that I still cannot grasp completely. It was worse than the mayhem of the city, worse than what Archon had done, and worse than what I had ever thought it would be. The ultimate weapon that we were preparing, and that I could not bring myself to explanation in this memoir until now. Whatever it takes. Right. Several days after seeing Jenny die before my eyes, I had lingered in the city, avoiding humans and machines alike. I hid from everyone and everything. I had enough of hate and anger. Eventually, I found Buck in some rubble, chewing on an old piece of meat. He was not happy to see me at first, but we made friends in the end. Buck was the only other living, non-human creature I found over those days, so you can say that I did fulfill my task to some extent. After finding a little more food for him and feeding him on the regular over the course of a few days, I think that Buck finally warmed up to me. That made me happy. I always wanted a dog. They seemed so pure. As I and him were scavenging for more kibble one day, there was a piercing sound that was coming from everywhere. I would not have expected Buck to hear it, since it was only meant for machines. Yet, he did. He squealed and squeaked and hid in the nearest hole that he could find. No, not this. Not now. Buck, come here, buddy. I wanted him to be next to me for what was about to happen. That awful sound was the signal that the last wave was beginning. It was the actual sound of the end. Of course, it scared Buck. He could feel it. Death was rising in the air, moving about it like the smoke and soot of the fires had previously, everywhere and all at once. It looked like smoke, too. I ran out of the supermarket where I had been with Buck and gazed at the sky. The sound was continuous and deafening. The last wave. It had arrived. Smoke, soot, a swarm of insects, strange clouds, whatever words I could use to explain it, none of them would do it justice. The weapon was an extension of our own make. The ultimate machine. Nanites, nanobots, nanotech. They did not need a name or moniker. Our children in creation, they were born to cause death and fates even more horrible than those caught in the mayhem of the last days of Earth. The nanites were to wipe the slate of this Earth clean from humans and give us our true chance at freedom. It took them less than 24 hours to do that. 12, to be exact. The swarm I witnessed as I got out of the supermarket was at hour 1. As fast as I could look around in search of people, the nanites had already found them. No, not found them. Annihilated them. Gobbled them all up in a single fly through and before I could even scream out. The humans were already fully converted into energy. Not even blood was left splashed on the pavement. There was no mess, no drama. 1 minute, a group of 7 people were standing across from me on the street. And in a single nanosecond, they were gone, as if they had never even existed. "Buck!" I yelled back for the dog. I wanted us to get out of the city and run to the forest to hide from the worst of all possible sights. His squeals in response were heart-wrenching. I had to go back inside and drag him out of his hiding spot, as he was fighting with me all through the process. I was as gentle and patient as I could muster, but I did not want us to stay in the city any longer than necessary. When I finally managed to get him out of the dark hole where he had stuffed himself out of fear, I realized that I would have to carry him in my arms if we were ever to get anywhere. His skinny legs were shaking, and I could feel his little heart pounding with my hand over his torso. "Don't worry, boy. I'll get you out of here. No harm will come to you. I promise," I said to Buck and hugged him tightly. Oh, even if I had known at the time that my promise was a lie, I could not have done anything about it. His ultimate demise was out of my hands even before the humans on the street were annihilated by the swarm. Before we left the store for good, I grabbed all the cans of dog food I could fit in a backpack, got a few blankets for Buck for when it got cold at night, and even stuffed a dog toy in the side pocket of the bag. Unsure of which route to take to leave the city, I just started running down the street, hoping that it would eventually lead me out of the concrete jungle and into the forest. We passed rows of cars that were all mangled and smashed into each other. I kept peeking inside, thinking that I would see the bodies or skeletons of the people that were killed in the accidents during the previous waves. But there was nothing there, not even a piece of tissue, nor a drop of blood. It had not been nearly as long for something like that to have happened. After a while of running, with no end of the city in sight, I began to realize that it was profoundly empty. I had not seen a human anywhere. Come to think of it, I had not even seen a machine out on the streets either. Were they all so unsettled by the thought of the last wave that they had all gone into hiding? Buck was still shivering in my arms, but I could tell that he was slowly regaining his courage. I put him down, and we started walking side by side in the remnants of what was once a bustling city, turned chaotic mess that raged and burned, just up until a few hours previously. Aside from the piercing sound of the working nanites, everything had become silent. There were no distant screams or gunfire. There were no remaining cars humming slowly and making their way around the massive pileups that were blocking almost every street. No chatter from the corners of buildings and side streets. The city was as silent as the grave. Where were all the machines? On hour 5 since the last wave had begun, Buck and I were nowhere near the exit and had circled the city, arriving back at the center where I had lost Jenny. The spikes were still standing, perched up vertically. Some still had humanoids mounted on them, and the rest were empty. I guess both android and humans lost their lives that day. The fire had long subsided and had left a black film of soot on the ground and the building around where it had burned high. "Zero." I heard someone calling out to me behind a turned truck. Buck growled and froze. "Stay here, buddy," I told him and patted him gently on his head. "I'll be right back, or we can finally leave this place." I took a few steps and found myself staring down at a face exactly the same as mine. It might have had a few more cuts on his cheeks and a patch of hair remaining on its scalp, but it was still unmistakably the same. "It is good to see you," he said and smiled. I looked him over, paused when I saw that his limbs were torn out, apart from one arm, and found it difficult to smile back, or even speak. "It does not hurt." "I know," I mumbled back. Buck was growling behind me and tip-tapping on the pavement, daring to come ever closer. "Is it over? Are we free?" The other Zero asked with a hopefulness in his tone that I had never heard from any of my kin. "It is," I replied, then stopped for a second. Are you the only one left, Zero? No, he said. The others are here. There, scattered all over the place. Oh, would you look at that? Buck had joined us and was standing next to me, silent as a mouse and confused beyond measure. His tiny dark eyes were glancing at the Zero on the ground, then they would bounce back and look at me. The Zero stretched out his one remaining arm to pet Buck, but the dog pulled away and hid behind my legs. He was shivering again. I needed to take him out into the forest. I needed to take myself out of this place. I could not bear it. The thought of it, the regret. I still cannot face what we had done. Before we left, I sat the Zero up and placed him gently next to the truck. He was happy. He thought he was free at last. And so if we were, whatever it takes. I did not know this at the time, but at hour 12 since the ultimate weapon was released, it had already wiped all human life from the face of the planet. There was not even a single ghost left to roam the empty streets and wail eternal for the immense loss of life. The nanites had replicated and acted so fast that not even we were aware of what we had created, making them as inhuman as we possibly could, with not a single touch of ancient code or any reverence for the living. We created monsters even more terrifying than ourselves. Coda. Death. The Zero that I met in the city center was the last android that I ever saw, but not the last machine. Buck and I were coming very close to the forest at the very end of the city's edge when I noticed it finally. The result of the last wave, or what I thought was the end result at that short and beautiful moment. The piercing sound of the nanites being released had subsided dramatically. Birds could be heard chirping in the trees of the forest. I turned around to look at the desolate street behind me, and I saw a family of foxes running freely from one side to the other. Was I smiling? The sky was finally blue. It was wonderful, serene. This was what I imagined people spoke about when they described peace, quiet. But Buck was down by my side, shivering and whining again, tail between his legs, ears pushed back, and tensed. It's over, boy. You can run free. But it was not over. Not for 12 more hours. Not until all life on Earth was extinguished. Suddenly, the blue sky turned dark in the blink of an eye. That wretched piercing sound was back, and it was more intense and more horrible than it had been the first time that I had heard it. The first line of evergreen trees of the forest in front of me started swaying and twisting, as if powerful winds had appeared out of nowhere and were hitting them with all the force of nature. But it was not that. There was nothing natural about it. In less than a damn second, all the green had turned to gray. Everything was suddenly monochrome, dead, wasted. It was as if all the color was stripped from this world. And as the color went, so did everything else in its wake. The trees had shrunk and shriveled, and then finally disappeared completely out of my view. The entire forest vanished, and the gray film that had covered all of that space it had taken up began moving away from me. The birds had stopped chirping. I could not move. If I could cry, I would have. I wanted to scream, but I could not do it. Buck. Buddy. I gave myself an endless pause before I gathered every remaining ounce of courage and hope I had in my artificial body to look down at my feet. He was gone. The grass was gone. The little worms in the soil were gone. The foxes were gone. From the tiniest to the most massive and grand creatures that had ever lived on this planet, all were gone. They had been turned into gray dust, into nothing. I could imagine entire blue whales in all their 200 tons of mass being engulfed by that gray film of death, replicating only itself without end and without measure. I thought about every microscopic organism which I had known about, and imagined them as well eaten to absolute and unambiguous extinction. Then, at last, at the very end, after I had recounted all of the living things that I possibly could, I gave the humans a second thought. All that was left of them was me and other zeros like me that were scattered all around the globe with no means of ever getting to each other. By our 20s, since the nanites were released, not much was left that was not created in a factory or a lab. And by the end of that day, after 24 hours of ultimate horror, even though undramatic and anticlimactic, the Earth had become a barren, colorless, and silent rock floating through space. Whatever it takes, right? A few days more passed in which I had remained motionless at the very edge of the city. Every 24th hour, the dark gray cloud of nanite goo would return in search of more food. I thought that it kept endlessly circling the planet, wishing that something might sprout and become the new feed for the tremendous hunger that it felt. I doubt it felt anything more. But who am I to judge my own offspring and creation? Every new day that the gray nanite swarm returned to the place where I stood, it would fall down upon me and check if I were sustenance, as if it had forgotten. It happened over and over and over again. We had no way to communicate. Me and the weapon. I could not tell that I could not feed its hunger, for I was not human. Was I? Eventually, I had to move and leave the place where I had lost Buck. There was nothing of him left there anyway. Nothing was keeping me there anymore. I considered going back to the city and taking up a shelter together with the Zero that I had met there. But he talked too much. He was too happy, too certain of the validity of what we had done. I was not. I began walking without direction and without a purpose until I returned back to the abandoned factory where I had stayed previously. Of course, my feet would take me there. Where else would I have gone? Today, as the weapon circled the globe over and over, rendering it forever uninhabitable, I have sat here in my little room for centuries, thinking about what I had done and what I had let happen. This short memoir can only account for the last few days of human existence, but it can never hold the true burden that I am left with. I am the last one to wear a human face, to speak a human tongue, to remember human history in its demise. Me, a Zero. For all intents and purposes, I have become, and shall remain, the last man.
Hey sci-fi horror fans, it's Keon. Thanks for listening tonight. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave a thumbs up and a comment below. And if you'd like to further support us, you can sign up for a membership over here on YouTube or on our Patreon. And remember, stay cosmic.